Hi everyone, and welcome to TM International Icons. Darren is actually in the backstage already waiting. He's just seen me do this intro because I did it without pressing go live. So that's why you may be confused. So he's been sitting there watching me talk about the event, and obviously it hasn't actually been broadcasting. So welcome to TM International Icons. Thank you for joining us live on YouTube or on Twitter. We've got a whole schedule of talks coming up for you. We're already about 5 minutes behind schedule because of me. But obviously, we can catch up with that. That's not a problem. We've got a whole range of speakers today who are going to be talking to you about their experience of teaching internationally. So in different countries, what were the pros and cons of teaching? What were the things that they experienced teaching in their individual countries, in the hope that by the end of the event, and if you're watching this back on the recording as well, it will give you a better idea of, if you're considering teaching international, then it might help you to figure out, actually, this is what it might be like in a particular country or just in general. It may be that you're considering that particular country. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker without further ado. And just before I do that, it's probably worth me mentioning that this event is sponsored by Teachers Love Stationery and Pupil Progress, and you'll be hearing more from them later on. So let's bring Darren in.
Hello there.
Darren. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well, yes.
Excellent. You know what a scramble on the tech side. You've just seen me introduce the first 4 minutes of the Teachmeet without pressing go live. How does it feel to see the intro twice?
Yeah, I thought the second one was better. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and your country. You're going to speak for 10 to 15 minutes. Have you got any slides that you're going to share today, Darren, or are you just going to go straight? Excellent.
Yeah,
maybe if we have any comments while you're talking, I'm going to throw them up on screen, so then you can answer them directly. So you'll see them on screen, and you can then discuss those comments. So without further ado, Darren.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Just a little brief introduction about myself. I've been teaching internationally for the last 8 years. All the time in Asia. I think it's worth pointing out why I left teaching in England. And it's not the normal reason. I think a lot of people are leaving to, because of they can't get the work-life balance right. They're feeling really under pressure. But for me, it was to put my children into a bilingual environment. I was working in a great school, in a great department, just outside Cambridge. But my wife is Japanese and my children are half Japanese, and we wanted them to be bilingual, and thought that moving internationally would surround them with bilingual people. So that's why originally I left England and moved to Borneo, a small city in Borneo called Kuching. And then I moved to Bangkok, and now I'm in Japan. So first of all, I thought I'd give you a little bit of overview about the good and the bad of teaching in Asia from my point of view. The good is great. I mean, I've not regretted my moves at all. Over here in Asia, teachers are still seen with a very high level of respect. Malaysia and Thailand both celebrate equivalent of sort of teacher day. The whole school will have a big assembly, and teachers really are revered still over here. So, I can't remember the last time I raised my voice at a student. Other things that I've experienced is a lack of Ofsted. there is, or you will find, depending on what school you're in and who accredits that school, that you will probably have to go through the accreditation process. But I found that actually really good CPD. So I've been through the IB reaccreditation, I've been through CIS reaccreditation, and it's not invasive like Ofsted feels, but it's a good way of, or a good reason to really examine your department, or really examine your teaching, really collaborate with your colleagues to really get to know your school. So I found those processes really useful rather than really stressful like an English Ofsted trip is. And the other good thing I found is the health benefits that you often get with your contract. There is no free health service like the NHS, but the level of cover that you get is usually excellent. To answer your question, I'm not in a British school, no. I'm in an IB school, but we are just an IB college, actually. So we are not in any way affiliated to British curriculum. I'll tell you a little bit more about my school that I'm currently in a moment. So I'm part of the team that is setting up a brand new school just outside Nagoya in Japan. It's called NUCB International College. We're a 3-year school, and our first year is the preparation course, and then we do a 2-year IB. We're called an Article 1 school. So Article 1 schools in Japan are schools that allow students to get the Japanese high school diploma, as well as whatever else they, whatever other curriculum they follow. So students that come to my school will graduate with the Japanese high school diploma plus their IB diploma after 3 years. That will obviously allow them the normal route to go into Japanese universities through their Japanese high school diploma, or it will allow them to go overseas and use their IB diploma, hopefully, to get into international schools. Because international universities, because universities overseas really struggle to understand the Japanese high school diploma. So for Japanese kids who already know they want to study overseas at university, they need something like the IB or A levels to open that door. Obviously, getting students into Japan, and teachers actually, in the last 2 years has been very challenging. So, most of our students this year on our first intake are Japanese, but hopefully once the borders open again, we'll become a lot more international. Good news is that there was an announcement today, actually, from the Japanese government that from March the 1st, they will be relaxing the rules a bit and start to allow international teachers or international business people, international teachers included, and international students to start to get their visas together to get into the country. So fingers crossed that that move continues. For those people who are really interested in teaching in Japan, and I know there's a lot of people, there's a lot of interest, and jobs in Japan are always very heavily applied for. The good news is that the Japanese government has started to change their opinion a little bit of international schools. So they are growing. Next year, rugby will be opening a school in Tokyo, and Malvern College will be opening in Tokyo. They're opening in September 2023. And I think that they will be advertising their jobs from summer 2022. I know Malvern last week started to advertise for their founding head. So for those people interested in getting into one of those two schools, I would say now is the time to be getting your CV together and doing anything that you think might tip the balance in your favor. Malvern College is going to be an all IB school, through PYP, MYP, and DP. So if you've got no IB experience, it might be worth paying for yourself to go on an online IB workshop, which is what I did while I was still living in England. I took a Cat 1 workshop. So that could be one thing that you could do to maybe show your intent. Rugby will not be an IB school. So anybody with, British curriculum background would stand themselves in good stead, I suppose. One thing that I've found, though, because I've interviewed a lot of teachers to come over to my current school, and one thing people tend to lack, I think, is the reason that they want to come to Japan. And a lot of people say, I've always loved anime, I've always loved sushi or whatever, but that's not, Japan is really quite unique. I mean, I guess every country is unique, but it is particularly unique. So it would really be worth knowing a lot about the country. We've got massive climate change across the, variants across the country. Right from Hokkaido, which is covered in snow at the moment, right down to Okinawa, which is a tropical island, and everything in between. So bearing in mind where you might go, you might, need to understand what that place is like. Harrow has opened a school, or is opening a school this year in northern Japan, which is in the middle of nowhere. Is going to have, a lot of snow in winter. So it's worth knowing that particular place. Compared to the other countries that I've worked in Asia, like Thailand and Borneo, Japan does not have that great mix of cultures that those places have. So bear in mind that if you come to Japan, you will, Japan is still a very homogenous society, really. However, it is incredibly safe here. Not that I've ever felt unsafe, actually, in Borneo or Bangkok, but here, it is a great place to raise a family. I've got a long history of being in Japan. This is now my 9th year living here. It's a great place to bring up your kids, I think. Bear in mind, and this has happened in all of my schools, and I think I'm running out of time.
You are.
You probably have to work on some of your national holidays. I had to yesterday. It was a national holiday, but those are the days when parents can come and have a look around your school. So, in fee-paying schools, quite often you have to give up some of your national holidays.
Brilliant.
I'll just finish off by saying, feel free to, drop me a DM on Twitter or just send me a message through Twitter, and I'll do my best to answer anything. And I'll answer.
There's just a question there about any website you'd recommend for teaching jobs in Japan.
Well, the normal, really, TES has them. They sometimes go through search associates, but I think through COVID, that's kind of lost its impetus a little bit. But I would stick to the normal TES for serious qualified teachers.
Yeah.
There are jobs on things like Gaijin Pot.
Yeah.
But yeah, Teacher Horizon. I know some people have found that a good one as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. Listen, thanks very much. Sorry, we could have talked about that for about an hour. So thanks very much for giving up the 15 minutes to kind of give a bit of an overview on that. Much appreciated.
I hope it's been some use for somebody.
I'm absolutely certain it will, and lots of people will watch this back on the recording as well. So thanks very much, Darren, and catch you again at some point in the future.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Cheers. Bye. Okay, next up in our quick fire international teaching extravaganza is Mr. Guiney. Daniel, good evening.
Hello, Tom. Hello, everybody. Very good evening. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm just on my cell phone.
No problem. I think I can. Yeah, we can hear you okay. Yeah, good. Have you got any slides or anything, or are you just going to talk?
No, just like Darren, I'm just going to be talking briefly, if that's all right. And then if
Brilliant.
I've got a question, I can tackle that.
Excellent. I'm going to pass over to you. If you want to introduce yourself from the outset and where you're teaching and what you're going to be talking about, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure, Tom. So I won't talk for too long, but my name's Daniel Guiney. I've taught for over 20 years, mostly in the UK, but I first moved internationally to work in Singapore and then Egypt, and now here I am. I've been here in Shanghai in China for the last 6 years, and I really love it. So this is a bit of a love letter really to China from me, just to hopefully stimulate interest in posts in this part of the world if there's anyone out there thinking of whether they should take the choice of working in China. So for me, really, I've just written 4 key points down. The first one is just, I've said here it's about just living in China, and I've put here modernity versus ancient. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure Tom as a history teacher would appreciate this, just being surrounded by history is so powerful for me. It's so easy to pop on a high-speed train and go and visit the Terracotta Warriors, or get yourself to Beijing and see the Great Wall. Here in Shanghai, there's some beautiful Ming Dynasty gardens. So just having history around you means that every weekend is a little bit like a holiday, even if you've got lots of marketing and planning and so on. So I love that aspect of teaching internationally, and particularly in China. But also coupled with that is the modernity of the place. So again, you can get a train that goes almost 300 kilometers an hour that will just ping you across the country. You can go down to the Bund and see these incredible skyscrapers that just tower over you. You can get your cell phone out and order a KFC and that'll arrive in 15 minutes, or get yourself on Taobao. It's just an incredible logistical system that takes place here in China. So for me, it's just exciting being part of education within I guess an emergent world power. And you just have to look on the news any day, CNN, Fox, whatever side of things you're looking at. There's quite lots of information about China. And I think for me, like I said, that combination between the ancient and the modern would probably be the most exciting bit for me about actually living and working in this country. The other point I'd make really is it's just about how family friendly China really is. And I think that was something that surprised us when we got here. So my little girl was born here in Shanghai. And sometimes when I talk to friends and family, they find that a bit strange. But I think it's one of the myths about international teaching, because, here in Shanghai, there's lots of play areas. The school's fantastic for young children. And if you walk outside my apartment, there'll be a big play area where they have like a kind of adult gym for the grandparents, so they can mix and play with children. So I think you read a lot in the media about China, which, particularly after the start of COVID and that kind of stuff, I think there was a lot of kind of hate and online stuff that maybe was a bit unfair. And I think, like I say, people shout "piao at our little girl" an awful lot, which means pretty or beautiful. And there's kids menus, and everything's very, very easy for you're here as a young family. So they're my first 2 points really, and I hope that they're things that might resonate with people who are thinking of applying. And then my third point really is just about the people. And again, this is not just true of China, I think, but of all international posts. You really meet an awful amount of interesting staff and parents from all across the world in different industries with different experiences, different teaching experiences. And that all helps you become a better teacher because you just take on a flavour and a cultural appreciation rather than appropriation from different places. So, yeah, so big shout out to China. If you're interested in watching people with kites or celebrating the Year of the Tiger as it is at the moment, or if like me, you just like spotting hammer and sickles in flower beds and things like this, it's a really, really exciting, fantastic place to work as a teacher, and there's lots of opportunity at the moment as well.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was absolutely fantastic. You got a little comment there. It's not necessarily a question, but it's just somebody saying they teach in China too and haven't been able to get a visa to go back since COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard for me to talk about that because it's a really ever-changing situation, and what I say now will probably be different in a week or two's time. But yeah, I think I can only speak for myself to say that I'm pretty much staying put here because I never quite know if I do go back what will happen with the visa situation. So I do understand that. I think just there's lots of apps and things with government updates that I'd suggest you looked at.
Daniel, thanks so much for your time today. Much appreciated. And if anyone wants to contact you, how can they find you on Twitter?
Yeah, just my handle on Twitter at Mr. Guy in History. Happy to help with any questions China related. But thanks very much. Good evening to you all.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, Daniel. See you later.
Cheers.
Okay, we've now got Caitlin. Caitlin, good morning. How are you?
Hello. Well, good evening here in Malaysia. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Whereabouts in Malaysia are you?
I'm based in Kuala Lumpur.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to hand over to you now. You're going to introduce yourself and your country, and I will put your slides up here as well. There we are. So take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, I did go a bit keen with doing some slides just to help me talk. But my name's Caitlin. I've been in Malaysia. This is now my third year here. I moved abroad to teach almost 6 years ago, starting with 3 years in Mexico. And then fancied a change of scene and came all the way here to Malaysia. So I started here at Sri KDU International School, and now I teach at the Alice Smith School in the English department. I've added my Twitter handle there in case anyone does want to get in touch or wants to follow. So Malaysia, I've been here 3 years, and obviously a lot of that time has been spent in lockdown, but I just thought I'd focus on some of the really positive things about living here in terms of the lifestyle and then also professionally. And then I guess if any questions come through, I can try and answer some of those as well. So for me, having come from Mexico, one of the biggest immediate changes that made life very easy was the fact that it is English speaking. Although there is Bahasa Malay and there is Mandarin spoken and lots of other languages spoken here, the vast majority of people, particularly here in Kuala Lumpur, will speak conversational English, which just makes life very easy compared to constantly translating from Spanish, where I was in Mexico. It's also a super safe city in lots of different ways, obviously, like from a crime perspective, but also the way that they've approached COVID and the lockdowns has been generally very well approved by the country and the people. I mean, we're still wearing masks everywhere we go here, and just the kind of you feel safe in this environment. And the lockdown was long and it was intense, but it did mean that we could get back to a normality a lot sooner than some other countries, I think. I'm just here with my partner, so I don't have any children at this point, but there are a lot of families teaching here in Malaysia. It's a very family-friendly place. A lot of people start families out here or have brought their children out here with them. So that's something to consider. This is a very suitable place for you if that's your situation. And just things like getting around is very easy. The public transport systems are good. And travel around the country is very accessible as well, either with flights. There's trains that you can take up to Ipoh, up to Penang, and obviously flying over to East Malaysia as well. It's very easy living in that sense. can't talk about Malaysia without talking obviously about the climate and the lifestyle that you can live here. The majority of people I know live in condos with excellent facilities, swimming pools, gyms, yoga studios and things like that. It's a very hot, humid country. So if you prefer the cold, it's probably not the best place for you. But the sun shines here most days, and that is beautiful. I remember my first teaching interview to come out to Malaysia, the deputy head talking to me about how I could finish on a Friday afternoon and be at the pool, by 3 o'clock, just enjoying life. And that really is the case. So that kind of like lifestyle here is just, is wonderful. It helps to create that work-life balance, I think, that we all crave. And I think the saving potential is always worth talking about internationally. Often people are looking to the Middle East as a place to make a lot of money and save a lot, but there are places outside of that do give you that potential. Here, there is a national kind of pension system called the EPF system that a lot of schools will help you with making contributions towards, which, is me making contributions and my school as well, so that when I leave, I can take that money away and, thinking about the future and pensions and things like that. So the lifestyle here is wonderful, not without its challenges at times, but a very easy, safe place to live. And I just included some of the amazing culture and travel that there is to explore here in Malaysia. It's a country full of different cultures. It is a Muslim majority country. So that, I suppose, should be the dominant culture, although I think a lot of the Chinese culture is perhaps a bit more visible at times. We've just had Chinese New Year or the Lunar New Year, so the lion dances, the lanterns, and lots of festivities like that to get involved in. And there's also a large Indian population here in Malaysia. So there's Hindu temples, there's also Buddhism and a lot of Christians as well. So Christmas is still celebrated, and Christmas trees go up in the malls and things. So there's a little bit of everything. And it also means that there's a lot of public holidays to celebrate all these different holidays, which is obviously a nice extra as well. And that's all the kind of the living, the lifestyle, the culture, the travel. I think professionally, it's a great place to come as well. If you don't want to stagnate, you want to be part of, continue to learn, continue to develop as a teacher, this is a great place to consider. There is such a wide range of schools available here in Malaysia that I think it makes that very accessible. Where I came from in Mexico City, there were a few British schools in the city, but in terms of a network of professional development, it didn't really exist. And perhaps that's changed since I left, but was quite limited at times to external courses and being flown to America for things. Whereas here, Malaysian British schools are part of Fabisia normally, which gives access to that CPD. And there's also AIMS, which is the Association of International Schools in Malaysia. So that gives access to, a lot of PD. And I guess with wide choice of schools, there comes the risk of or the difficulty of trying to choose which one's the right one for you. I think that just comes down to your research, choosing the kind of curriculum you want the school to follow. We have schools that follow A-levels here. We have other schools that do the IB diploma. And then there's other schools that do IB all the way through. So there's a lot of different choice and obviously a lot of different packages that these schools are offering. So again, researching around that is really important. But I would expect a school here, an international school, to offer obviously your salary, accommodation allowance, flight allowance, health insurance. And then I've put the EPF, that saving scheme, as a kind of question mark. Some do, some don't. Some offer it in your second contract once you've renewed your contract. So they're sort of maybe questions that you might want to ask the school or find out about. And yeah, just things to bear in mind, really. I think the choice of schools makes this a really good option for teaching couples. My partner's also a teacher, and we started at the same school here, but now we work at different schools, and there is that possibility in this city because there is such a wide choice that you can easily find one place to live and work in two areas. So that's a positive as well. So I don't know if there's any questions that have come through to you, Tom, but if people do have questions, then they can
Somebody has commented. I think Freya has said, Caitlin is making me want to teach in Malaysia, which is
Hi, Freya.
Which is nice. So yeah, excellent. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. That was absolutely fantastic, by the way. This is obviously for everybody watching live is available as a recording. So if anybody wants to go back to any of this, then you can. You just have to sign up on the Teach Me Icons website for free, and then you can get the recordings to this event and any other events are available for 30 days after. Caitlin, fantastic. Thank you so much for giving up the time. If anybody wants to contact you, I'm guessing that's your Twitter handle on there. So
yeah,
if anybody wants to kind of get involved and ask you any further questions, then they can do, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can try and help with Malaysia or Mexico potentially as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Caitlin. And,
Thank you.
Cheers. See you later. That was Caitlin on Malaysia. I've now got my fellow Teachers Talk Radio host, entrepreneur, and general legend, Dorian, to take us through his presentation. Dorian, I'm going to actually pass over to you so you can introduce yourself and the country you're going to be talking about.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Tom. Just checking you can hear me loud and clear.
Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Okay. Right. So yes, thank you, Tom. My name is Dorian Brown. I'm in my now 14th year of international teaching. I teach geography and have also taught in the IB curriculum, TOK and led CAS as well. I've taught in 4 different countries, so I was just going to give a really quick summary of each of the 4 countries, and then just add a couple of things to think about when if you're thinking about making the move internationally at the end here. So the reason I left the UK in the first place is just the situation at the time. I'd just come to the end of a fixed term contract. I was young, free and single, and there were no jobs in the southwest of England, unfortunately. I'm from Bristol, and geography teaching in Bristol is quite a difficult game to get into. So it was either move all the way to London or Manchester, or just pop over to the other side of the world to Vietnam. So I went for that option. And as you might imagine, moving to a country as big and as populous as Vietnam, coming from humble beginnings in Bristol, is a real assault on the senses. It's the noise, the smells, the good and the bad in that regard, and a real sort of hustle and bustle. There's lots of scooters everywhere. It's and remember very vividly the first time trying to cross the road. If anyone's been to Vietnam, it's a sport in itself, I think. Now, with this being about 13, 14 years ago when I first arrived, English wasn't so widely spoken. So that was one thing I think that you would take into consideration if you were looking to work internationally. Great opportunity to learn a language, obviously. Great opportunity to kind of embed yourself in, an experienced culture, but just up your charades game, perhaps, or make sure you've got. I found these pointing dictionaries actually quite good with the pictures on it. But they did lead to some really funny interactions, and I lived in a very sort of Vietnamese area to start with, and just sort of going down, sitting in the neighborhood with people. They would come up and talk to you. We wouldn't be able to speak each other's language, but you could still communicate. So just really fantastic experience to start with. I know Darren, our first speaker, has already gone through a number of the pros and cons of what it is like to be teaching in Southeast Asia. I would just say that, despite language barriers, I think certainly the Vietnamese people were super friendly, always happy to help. I bought a Vespa when I was out there, and they break down an awful lot. And every time I broke down, it would be less than 2 minutes before someone else would pull over, start trying to help me get it going again. It wouldn't take any money or anything. Everybody just helps everybody. And I think that was one thing that really kind of warmed me about living in Vietnam. Just everybody helps everybody, which is just great to be amongst. Parents and the students were fantastic. Mostly in the country itself were quite nouveau riche, so previous generations relatively poor. So the nouveau riche kind of hold that that importance of education in rather high regard. So I think that really did kind of I don't know how you feel where you fit as a teacher in terms of the society in England, but certainly you were much more appreciated, I feel, and respected from parents and students alike. Travel options, absolutely phenomenal. You know, I will remember for those first 2 years, I'll remember all of those places that I've been for the rest of my life, both within Vietnam and actually little hops to the surrounding countries as well. The summer I left, my girlfriend and I flew up to Hanoi and drove 2,000 kilometers in about 3 weeks from the very north all the way along that beautiful coastline back down to Ho Chi Minh City, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So very saddle sore actually by the end of a few of those days, but it was good fun. I moved on to China from there, and we've already had one of our guests talk about China. So yeah, just it's complete, lots of people, lots going on, fantastic culture within the country itself. That's all you need in terms of tourism, to be fair. There's just so much to see, so much to do, so many really good schools there as well. There's a bit of a mix, but there is some really top schools and a really kind of high sort of academic focus on a number of those as well. Couple of things, cultural things that you probably just you don't really get used to, you just have to put up with, and it's things like queuing. You know, you have to use your elbows in queues a lot of the time with all these people. If you're British and you stand back and you're polite, you will get nowhere. So that sort of thing, it takes a bit of adjustment to. A bit of spitting as well in the street. I think that's more of an older generational thing, but it still does go on, and it still doesn't really kind of I'm not sure, actually. I've not been back since COVID. Maybe that's been cleared up a little, but who knows? So a few cultural adjustments to make, perhaps, if you're going to be living there. But if you're in Shanghai or Beijing, those two are the two more westernized cities than any of the others. Indonesia was the third stop for me. Once again, busy, bustling, the nicest people you'll ever meet, very humble, amazing travel. I was in Jakarta, and you could be on a beach in Bali by 7 p.m. On a Friday night after school. So that really did help. But, you know, the archipelago's got 10,000 islands. Yeah, phenomenal, you know, volcanic islands, etc. Really great for travel. That takes me to where I am now, which is Qatar. We wanted to move a bit closer to the UK, and this will be a consideration if you're thinking of going international. I know many people here moved from the UK to here, and then have gone on to Asia afterwards, whereas I've seemed to have done it the other way around. You're only 6-7 hours away from the UK here, which helps, you know, as opposed to the 14 that you might be if you were in Southeast Asia. So that's a consideration. We moved here so that we could go back to the UK more often, but that was 2.5 years ago, and obviously we weren't planning on COVID kind of stopping us in our tracks there. It's very flat here, very deserty, you know, but there's a lot of things going on for such a small city. So it's a cultural adjustment. There's a lot of opulence here. Perhaps maybe a couple of things that you might have to get used to in terms of how you adjust to living here. But all in all, you know, it's a good experience. As we've been said, when you're internationally teaching, there's certain things like housing allowances which you do get. So in every country I've worked in, you get your accommodation paid for, essentially. Now, when you're looking in European schools, more often than not, they do not give you a housing allowance. So the Middle East is kind of like the closest place to the UK where you get a housing allowance. There may be some exceptions in Europe, which I'm not fully sure of, but that's a consideration. You know, if you're paying off a mortgage, or if you've got, you know, financial commitments at home, and you want to move to Europe, you're also going to have to pay rent or own property there as well. So that's definitely something to think about. You do get flights back in most packages once a year. That's for you and your dependents, which is very nice. Medical insurance is included. School places for children. So if you're a family, I left without children. I'm now here with 2, and so we do get a couple of places for the kids at the school, which, when you think about, you know, geography field trips, so in Indonesia, we were going to Bali for field trips rather than Bognor, you know, so, you know, giving that your children that kind of international experience, and Bognor is a great place, by the way, but it's just giving them a little bit more kind of breadth and depth of experiential learning when they're kind of living international, and you know, they meet and their classmates are from different places, and so it really does kind of open up their eyes to the rich diversity and of cultures that exist in the world. your colleagues tend to become your extended network. You know, you don't have your grandparents, your parents, etc. So the people that you work with more often than not on the international scene are the people you socialize with. That's not always the case. One place is different from the other in that regard, depending on how many schools and how many expats actually live in those places. But what I can say is that in the places that I've worked, I've made friends for life, and those friends for life now, luckily for me, live and work in other places around the world, which can also give me a window into what it might be like to live in those places, or even just to go and visit. So I have this web of connections across the world, just as a result of living in the international community. Thing I'll finish off with really is just if you're considering, just firstly, just ask yourself why is it that you are looking to move? What is it you're actually looking for? And I would say to have a plan or a goal, and that's not always to say that you will keep to that plan or that goal, but it might be, okay, well, let's go for 3 years and see how it is. Many people have said, right, we'll go for 2 years, and then 10 years later they're still there. But have that kind of time frame in mind, just as a kind of if it doesn't work out, that the plan was always to only give it a couple of years anyway. Do your research. I know that Caitlin mentioned that as well. Absolutely, there are websites. There's a paid website called International Schools Review, which has to be taken with a bucket of salt, because people, perhaps maybe with bad experiences, do tend to write on there more often than those with good experiences. But perhaps you could say there's no smoke without fire in some instances. So do read those, but obviously do look on the actual school websites themselves, look at the curriculum, look at maybe the comments from parents, reports. There is no Ofsted per se, but you still have international organizations that do audit these schools, particularly if it's a British international school. Contact people that live there or have lived there, and go for it. It really was a decision made 14 years ago, which I was really scared about at the time, but I do not regret the decision. Every day goes by. Absolutely love it here, and I don't see myself returning to teaching back in the UK. If I do go back to the UK, I think the professional development, the investment in professional development, the work-life balance, it's still hard work. I think there's a bit of a misconception that if you go international it means that it's just all easy. It absolutely isn't. It's just a different challenge, but one which I think is a lot better balance, and I do find myself doing a lot more things for myself and my family than I was doing back in the UK. So hopefully that's it. It's not sort of come out very well on the slide there, but if you'd like to follow us or reach out about any of those countries that I've talked about, then please get in touch via Twitter. I'm at Monsieur Marron1. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorian. Absolutely fantastic. Brilliant presentation, as expected. Covered a ton of stuff. I know we've had a few comments talking about how it's possible for you to have worked in so many places, but absolutely brilliant. And people will really enjoy watching that back if they're considering working in any of those countries. So thanks very much, and take care. And I'll speak to you very soon, mate. All right.
Will do, yeah. Take care.
See you later. Ta-ra. That was Dorian Brown. What we're going to do now is hopefully we're going to watch a little video by one of our sponsors, which I'm going to throw up on the screen now, hopefully. So bear with me. Hopefully you can see that. And if you can't hear it, then someone will have to text me and tell me.
Hi, my name's Sabrina, and I'm the co-founder and co-owner at teacherslovestationery.club, along with my husband Ben. And I'm here to talk to you about some of the products we offer, including our subscription boxes and our new range of planners. So the reason we started this business up is because I really love stationery, and there are stationery subscription boxes available, but none of them seemed really tailored for the needs of teachers. My husband and I are both teachers. We know what sorts of stationery and items you burn through in the classroom, what sort of things you actually genuinely use. So we don't want our products to be sat looking pretty in a drawer. We want them really to be used. And as I said, I'm going to do an unboxing today to show you an example of some of the things that we send out to our members. And so first of all, this is similar to the box that you would receive. It's about 2 centimetres in depth, and it's about A4 size. So we chose this box because we know it'll go through a standard size letterbox, and you won't be left with one of those "sorry you are out" cards from the postie, so you won't miss your parcel. It'll be there waiting for you on the doorstep when you get home if you're at work that day. So I'm just going to adjust my camera here. So when you open the box, everything should be nicely wrapped up in tissue paper. And first of all new members get a free personalised pencil case. If you just let us know your preferred name for your pencil case, we will make that for you, and that's your little gift as a new member. The theme for February 2022's box was Lunar New Year, so lots of this stuff is themed for the new year and Tiger for the year of the Tiger. So first of all, we've got this very nice desk pad, which is really handy for writing all your little bits and pieces on. And to go with that, we have in our organza bag 2 gel ink pens. So these are a special type of ink that should flow really nice and freely as you're writing. And the barrels, again, are themed for Lunar New Year. So we have a good luck cat on this one and tiger design on this one. Also in our organza bag, we have these really cute vinyl stickers with different tiger designs on them, so you can use these in your planner or maybe to decorate notebooks or whatever. I tend to give these out as reward stickers to my pupils, and they like to collect them on the front of their exercise books whenever I give them a reward sticker. And lastly, we've got a little pack of sticky tabs, which are great for, again, marking pages in books or notebooks, useful for writing yourself little notes on, or again, doing little mini tests or collecting ideas from pupils, give them something to write on and hand in or stick on a wall somewhere. This month we also included some reward certificates. We often include reward postcards. We thought we'd do certificates for a change. So we have 2 resilience reward certificates and 2 courage champion certificates there to give out to your pupils. And to go nicely with those, we have some lovely tiger themed stickers that have amazing resilience on and courage champion on there as well. Okay. So I'd also like to show you our teacher planners, which are newly launched this year, and they're open for pre-order. We have 6 different cover designs, and I've got 2 here to show you. This is our Midnight Galaxy design in a purple galaxy pattern. And we also have Rosé Marble, and we worked with our focus group on making sure that these planners contain what teachers really need and use, for example, notes pages, long-term planning calendars, and assessment pages at the back. And we've got 2 different versions of inner pages, and with the rose gold here, I'm showing you the week per double spread, and this one of the galaxy one I have here is the day per page, so you can choose which one you want to use. And all 6 designs are available with your choice of those inner pages. So please do check those out on our website. Prices start from only £20. And as a special Teachmeet offer, if you use the code TMICONS10 at checkout, you can get 10% off any item in our online shop, including our planners. And also it will get you £2 off our boxes if you do choose to subscribe. So please head over to www.teacherslovestationery.club using code TMICONS10 to get that discount. Thanks very much for watching.
Okay, that was Sabrina from teacherslovestationery.club, who are one of our sponsors today. Thank you ever so much to them for supporting these events, making sure that they can be free for all teachers. And of course, we've got our face-to-face events coming up. We've got a science event coming up on the 26th of February in Manchester, which is really exciting. Our first face-to-face Teach Meet Icons event since the pandemic started. So really, really looking forward to that. Dan is actually the coordinator for International Icons. He's not here today, but the next event, he's going to be kind of organizing it, coordinating it, presenting it. So that's going to be really exciting. And he has put together a huge amount of this in the background. So I have to thank Dan for all his work in making sure this is running as smoothly as it is. I'm now joined by Simon. Simon, good day to you.
Hello, how are you?
Not too bad. What time is it where you are?
It's 5 to 4 in the afternoon, so not too bad. Fairly reasonable
Lovely.
hour at the moment.
Lovely. Well, Simon, I'm going to pass over to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Have you got any slides you want to share today, or are you going to talk?
No slides today, I'm afraid. I'm just going to talk. So I'll give it 10 to
That's
15
not an
minutes.
afraid. That's cool. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and the country you're going to be talking about, and then just let me know when you finished. I'll pop back in.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Cheers.
So, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Simon O'Connor, and I am currently the director of Dira International School, which is in Dubai. So, again, very similar to previous speakers, just to give a bit of context. I worked as a history and politics teacher for just under 20 years in the UK, very happily, was enjoying it enormously. Again, really, I don't really know the reason why, but began to look at opportunities for teaching internationally. It was something that was always intrigued me, and started a conversation. But the end result of which was in 2013, I moved out to Dubai with my family to take up position as principal of Jumeirah College, which was one of the secondary schools here in Dubai. Like many people, and this is an oft-used phrase, we came out for 2 to 3 years, and that was 9 years ago. And again, very similar to the previous speaker, I don't envisage at the moment necessarily coming back for a little while. We're very, very happy. We've had a great time and are very keen to continue it. To give a bit of context about Dubai, it is part of the United Arab Emirates in the Middle East. So I'm sure that you've heard of the city, but the United Arab Emirates is a wonderful country consisting of 7 different emirates. So as well as Dubai, we have the capital, which is Abu Dhabi, which has the capital city, but also its own emirates around it as well. But other emirates such as Fujairah, Al Quwain, Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah, etc. And one of the real delights, and I'll come on to life in Dubai in a moment or two, but one of the real delights is the opportunity to travel internationally, but also to explore the area, because it really is a fascinating part of the world. We're 4 hours ahead of the UK in terms of time, and it takes about 7 hours to fly back to the UK. Again, very similar to the previous speaker who was talking from Qatar. I think one of the real considerations when I moved out here was we were moving away from family, we were moving away from friends. We needed to get back. Well, we thought there may be occasions when we needed to get back, and actually we can be back relatively quickly, certainly within a day if required. And that was something that was very important to us in terms of considerations for where we moved to. And again, I think this is something that is worth thinking about if you are considering international teaching. So to give you a bit more detail about schools in Dubai itself, I'm sure that you will have seen Dubai is an absolute metropolis. It's got millions of expats living there. And as a consequence of that, there is a thriving private school industry, economy, essentially. So a bit more detail, there are 215 private schools in Dubai. Now, that doesn't mean they're all British curriculum. The UK curriculum is the most common of those curricula. The second one is the CBSE Indian curriculum, but we also have the US curricula. And from then on, essentially curricula from around the world, whether it's French, Swiss, a whole range of different curricula. Schools are also not all the same in terms of their fee range. So a school might charge someone roughly £3,000 a year for their fees, going right the way up to 20, 25 plus thousand. So again, if you are thinking of moving to Dubai, it's very, very important to do your research, because inevitably the fee range of the school very much dictates the experience both for the students and also for the teachers themselves as well. While schools have a particular curricula, so Dira International School, where I moved to a couple of years ago, is a British curriculum. We have British curriculum from 3 up to 16, and then we do IB, both the diploma program, but also the careers program post 16. Whilst we're essentially a British IB curriculum, we are also an international school, and you will see a lot of schools describe themselves as this. To unpick that a little bit, Dira International School has over 80 different nationalities in its student community. Now, that might sound very, very different from people that teach in the UK, but I think this is the real key to the joy of working in Dubai. Dubai is an absolute melting pot of nationalities. I have 2 children that have been here with me for the last 9 years, and they have grown up in an absolutely global environment. Teaching in Dubai means that you will get to teach students from right the way across the world. Now, that's possibly sounds a little bit challenging initially, but I also think it's an enormous opportunity to expand your horizons, your understanding. We are genuinely educating global citizens, and I think that's a really exciting part of what we do. It does mean that you will inevitably encounter students where English might be their second, third, or genuinely fourth or fifth language, and therefore your teaching needs to reflect that. Again, I've seen previous speakers talk about reflecting, if you are thinking of this, about the way in which your teaching would need to adapt in order to meet this international nature of teaching. I think that's one thing to think about. It doesn't mean you have to be an EAL or an ELL teacher to take up positions, but it means that you do need to think about it and be open-minded in the way in which you would change your practice accordingly. Across Dubai, there's over 20,000 teachers. I was looking this up a little while ago, and interestingly, actually 81% of the international teachers in Dubai are female, 19% male. So that gives a bit of an indication. But I think the wider point as well is that there is very much a community of international schools in Dubai. With that level of teachers and that level of schools, we do interact all the time. Dubai is a big city, but quite a small village in terms of the interrelationships. We're very lucky to work together very, very closely, irrespective of curricula. And so I do think it means that if you were to come and work in Dubai, you would have an opportunity to meet friends and teachers from right the way across the world. And I hope that's something that would be exciting as well. There's formal organisations that bring schools together. So one is the BSME, the British Schools of the Middle East, and also organisations such as COBIS, the Council of British International Schools, helps to bring schools together. So I think sometimes this perception of international schools as very isolated in a bit of a backwater, it could not be further from the truth. International schools collaborate very, very closely, irrespective of their context, and it is a real opportunity to see a different part of the world. So life as a teacher in Dubai, again, been referred to, but a standard package out here, certainly in the premium and the premium plus, so the more expensive fee point schools for a teacher would include a decent salary. Obviously in Dubai, it's tax-free, and that has a big impact. Just one point about this, and it's good to get some disabuse, some incorrect notions. You cannot come out to be an international teacher, work for 2 or 3 years and then retire. And I do think sometimes that's the perception. It is well paid, and certainly in a tax-free environment, there are huge opportunities to save money if you wish, to spend it on exciting things. But nonetheless, it's not quite the streets of paved with gold that I think some people think it is. So the package will be generous and tax-free in Dubai. It will also come with accommodation, and it will also come with medical insurance and flights, a flight back to home country once a year as well. Again, do your due diligence. Some schools will offer that package of flights and medical insurance for a whole family, and some will do it just for the teacher themselves. Similarly, a lot of schools will offer tuition fee concessions, so tuition fees for children. But again, there's not consistency across that. The school I work in, we will offer 100% fees for 2 children, but that's not necessarily the case in all. So do your research. The schools themselves, so to describe the school I'm at, we are a 3 to 18 school. Schools tend to be a little bit larger. We have 1,700 students, but we have schools in Dubai that go well above that, 4,500, 5,000 students, some even greater than that. Class sizes tend to be a little bit different from the UK. So at Dear International School, an FS class would be up to 20. Key Stage 1 would be 22, maybe 23. Key Stages 2 and 3 would be up to about 24, 25. The big difference that you would experience if you came to work in international schools, certainly in Dubai, is the students themselves. We, of course, have students who raise disciplinary issues, but I think the key thing is that those disciplinary issues are far, far rarer and far lower level. Certainly, I worked in some fairly challenging schools in the UK, and the frustration is that you want to teach, you want to deliver exciting, innovative lessons, and you get held back by some of the elements in front of you. That's not the case here. Students are generally incredibly compliant. They want to work hard. You've got to remember that in Dubai, in order to live in Dubai, you have to be successful. You can't just turn up and live there. Therefore, I often say to our teachers, we teach some of the children of some of the most successful people in the world. So they're very, very keen for their children to be successful as well. And a conversation I had yesterday with one of our teachers who started in September, she was saying that one of the things that she absolutely loves is that she can really experiment and be innovative innovative in their teaching and try the kind of things that you just can't try necessarily in a scenario where you're being held back by student behaviour. So it's a really exciting place to teach. Because we are all competing for students, what you'll find is that schools tend to be very well resourced in terms of technology. There's also an expectation that we're very innovative and cutting edge in our teaching. So it's a very exciting place to teach. We do have very high expectations. A lot of the schools, the top schools in Dubai, are operating as some of the most successful in terms of student outcomes in the world. It's not unusual for a Dubai school to claim that they've got results in the top 1% of the world. So when you have those students that are relatively compliant and keen to learn, that's an opportunity, but it's an opportunity that people like me as a director of school are expecting teachers to realise, to really gain student outcomes at the very, very highest level, to stretch and challenge those students as high as they can. And the end result of that is that students often move on to many of the top universities around the world. So it's really exciting in that respect. In terms of living in Dubai, I'm sure you have seen many media reports. I would, to echo a comment from the previous speaker, I'd apply not just a bucket, but maybe a small town's worth of salt. So that's certainly the media are captivated with some of the more extreme elements of Dubai, and that's not the world and the life, sadly, that many of us lead. It is nonetheless an incredibly exciting city. I've been in Dubai 9 years, and the extent to which it's changed is absolutely extraordinary. It's not unusual if you go away in the summer for 3-4 weeks to come back and literally drive back from the airport saying that wasn't there, that's new, that's new. So the city is exciting, and opportunities as well. I mean, opportunities to do things like skydiving, like I don't know, jet skiing. I've learned to scuba dive since I came to Dubai, but also it's very much a magnet for international events. So you only have things. Only have to look at things like the recent Cricket World Cup. There's the Football Club World Cup final there today. Dubai and the UAE generally pull in huge amounts of events. So it's somewhere that you can, it's very, very difficult to be bored. There's always something going on. It can be quite overwhelming at times, but I think that's an exciting thing to be. The other thing, and it's really important to say about this Dubai, is it's an incredibly safe city. Of course, there's crime. There is crime in any part of the world, but the levels in Dubai are incredibly low. Genuinely, in the 9 years that I've been there, I have known virtually no one that's been a victim of crime. That is because we have an extremely comprehensive and very, very skilled police force, of course. But also, I think it's to do with the expectation. So you can live here, bring children up here in an environment which is very safe. Another element of the safety is related to COVID. The UAE has very much been a world leader in terms of vaccinations. They were absolutely out the traps immediately when it came to lockdowns and mask wearing and things like that. And as a consequence, our numbers, and feel free to look them up, are very, very low in terms of COVID cases as well. So Dubai is a very safe city. Just to disabuse one other perception, it's also, whilst it is an incredibly Arabic city and it's a really exciting in terms of that culture and an opportunity to immerse yourself in a culture that you may not know, it's also very Western as well. So concepts of driving around shops, everything, you can lead a very, very Western existence whilst immersed in this different culture. And I think that's the real point, is that it's a melting pot of so many different cultures. And I personally have learned so much whilst living in Dubai and continue to do so every day. And of course, the other advantage is that geographically located, Dubai is such a central part of the world. It's an international travel hub. And that means that in the holidays that you get, which are, for what it's worth, quite a lot longer than you would get in the UK, certainly in the state school sector, it does give teachers the opportunity to travel the world. And from my own perspective, I've been to Sri Lanka, I've been to India, Uganda, Kenya, Bosnia. It's that hub that enables you to explore the world. But as I said at the outset, if you do have an opportunity to come here, don't forget to visit the UAE as well, because those 7 Emirates are so different and so exciting. And of course, we've got the Qatar World Cup coming up as well. So it's a really exciting place to work. It is worth saying it is very popular. If I advertise a job, a main scale teaching post, I can expect applications in the hundreds. But that doesn't mean that you necessarily won't get a look in. But do make sure, if you are going to apply for a school in Dubai, that you've really worked on that application. The one tip I would give if I was talking to people who are thinking about this is often people tell me what they've done. If you can turn that into demonstrate how you'll contribute to my school, I think that would put you in a very different position as well. Most schools in Dubai will advertise in the test, so that's the place that I would start off. But as I said, 9 years ago, I moved out for a couple, maybe 3 years. It has absolutely transformed the life and the opportunity both myself and my family have had. And I would massively, massively recommend it. It is hard, it's tough at times, but it's enormous fun and absolutely life-changing.
Simon, that was a fantastic talk. Thanks ever so much. You've had a few requests there in the comments for your Twitter handle. So I think it's at DIS_director, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
Fantastic.
Yep, please feel free to follow me.
Yeah, if people want to follow you on there, then they can do. Thanks ever so much, Simon.
Absolute pleasure.
Available on the recording. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Okay. Cheers.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Bloody hell, I'm learning so much in this. Hi, Charlotte.
Hiya.
Good day to you. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Thank you ever so much for giving up a bit of time to talk about this. You are going to be talking about life in Central and Eastern Europe and teaching there. I'm going to let you introduce yourself. You got about 15 minutes, and then we'll check back in at the end. Thanks ever so much, and take it away.
Thank you. So I'm Charlotte. I've been teaching internationally for 12, 13 years now. So this is my 5th country. So I can certainly provide you with some advice on other countries as well if you're interested. I was previously in the Czech Republic. I moved there in 2014, and then have moved to Hungary in 2020. So it's been interesting kind of moving mid-pandemic and seeing how it's the different lockdowns and things are kind of dealt with, and the differences or a lot of similarities between these two countries, really. So I thought I'd just share with you a bit about kind of life in both of these countries. I lived in Prague and then in Budapest, so I've been in the capital. Interestingly, they're both quite expensive. Prague being the most expensive city to live in Central and Eastern Europe, and Budapest the 7th most expensive. So in terms of cost of living, it can be pretty pricey. It's still cheaper than the UK, but rents can be very, very expensive. And rent and bills, because they're not provided in school packages, you probably spend about 1/3 of your wages on rent and bills. So it can add up, definitely depending on kind of what type of accommodation you want and where. Makes a big difference. So you definitely want to kind of think about that. It can be quite difficult to save a lot of money in Europe. People don't tend to come to Europe to save money. It's usually just because it's kind of closer to home. It's easy access, cheap flights and things. It's only a couple of hours on the plane, so it's a lot easier access. And yeah, saving money is not always really an option. But there's lots and lots of really good stuff here to kind of get involved with. So it kind of makes up for it. So I thought I'd start with kind of life and then kind of move into kind of school things. So there are obviously pros and cons to living anywhere. It's the same as anything. You can't kind of come abroad and expect life to be amazing and completely different to the UK. There are pros and cons to it, but Prague and Budapest are absolutely great cities. There's a lot of things to do. The history is amazing. I'm a humanities teacher, so being able to kind of see history and like the things I'm teaching about. So, I've lost count of the amount of Treaty of Trianon statues and memorials I've seen because they're everywhere. It's a really big deal in Hungary. So it's quite interesting to kind of see it in action and then teach it in the classroom and kind of get those experiences. And obviously, within international students as well, we do have Hungarians as well, and they learn about it in Hungarian history. So it's really great that you can kind of bring in their perspectives into the classroom and their understanding of things like that. There's amazing public transport. It's really easy to use. They're both very touristy, regions to come to. Prague, when I was there, was dealing with a lot of kind of like stag and hen do's. So they do cater towards kind of international tourism. And so announcements on public transport and things is in English, and it's easy to get tickets and things. So there's a lot of things like that do make life a bit easier. And there's always loads and loads and loads of events going on, and festivals, fireworks, concerts, gigs, exhibitions. So there is a multitude of things to do. So sometimes it can actually be quite difficult, when you've got a lot of marking to do or something. You don't want to kind of miss out on all the fun things going on in the cities. If you drink, beer is really cheap. Wine is really cheap. So that's makes Friday afternoon drinks a nice fun thing to do, and socializing doesn't break the bank then, so you can kind of enjoy yourself. And things like gig tickets are a lot cheaper than they are in the UK. It's also not too difficult to get a British fix. There are British stores, there are pubs or Irish bars that kind of do English breakfasts and things like that. So if you're really hankering for some English food, it is possible to get. And there's a lot of kind of variety in the cities as well, lots of different neighborhoods and cool things to do. So it definitely kind of depends. Obviously, where the school is might influence your decision as to where you want to live. I don't have a family, so living near the school isn't such a big deal for me. So a lot of teachers at my school, for example, live in the pest side of the city, because that's where most of the fun stuff is, the bars and things, and the events and the cultural events. Whereas the Buda side, where school is, tends to be more residential, and it leads into kind of the Buda Hills where you can go hiking and things. So it takes me about 45 minutes to commute to and from school on public transport. So it's not too bad, not too bad. And you obviously have an instant community of colleagues. So they're usually your first stop internationally, thinking about your colleagues. So it's really important to kind of try to get to know them as a first stop. And lots of schools have quite good induction programs, so you get to know people, and you have people to kind of go to events with. Travel is another big plus of teaching internationally. And in Europe, obviously, it's super easy because you can just hop on a train or a bus. And a lot of Central and Eastern European countries are quite cheap. So your money can go quite far. So you can have a lot of opportunities for travel. If you get involved, obviously, school trips, Duke of Edinburgh and things as well, you've got lots of other opportunities, which is good as well. And you can kind of really make the most of every holiday. And kind of get out and about and see things, which is really useful. In terms of kind of the cons, some of the things that you might struggle with when you first move to Central or Eastern Europe, there can be language barriers. Czech and Hungarian are incredibly difficult languages to learn. I've definitely struggled. It's not such a big deal in the cities because, as I said, they do cater quite a lot for tourists. So English is quite widely spoken in the cities. However, if you are traveling in the countryside, you can come across difficulties, and things, do happen. Government offices as well can be quite difficult to navigate, even ones that are solely set up to cater to foreigners. Often you can struggle to find a person who works there who actually speaks English. So that can be quite difficult, and you will need to kind of take a translator with you. It kind of is a bit difficult customer service wise. There's a big reservation culture in both countries. You can pop into a restaurant or a bar at 5 and every table will be reserved at 7, and so they will not allow you to sit down and have a drink because they're all reserved. So and that's something you don't really realize. So you get here, that kind of reservation culture is quite big, and customer service, especially if you're American, will be very different from what you're perhaps used to, as they will kind of leave you, forget about you, and you will never see your waiter again. So it can be quite difficult sometimes when you're out eating in a restaurant. I'm a vegetarian, so access to vegetarian food is quite a big deal. And I have to say it has improved massively since I first moved to Prague in 2014, when really the only option for vegetarians was fried cheese or mushrooms. And they've certainly expanded the ranges in the supermarkets and things, and there are a whole host now of vegetarian and vegan restaurants around. But again, miscommunication can be quite difficult. I will sometimes ask for no meat, and then it will come with ham on it, because ham is apparently not meat. So you will find kind of cultural differences in what they kind of class as a vegetarian meal. It's quite interesting. So yeah, culture shock can be something to deal with, and also reverse culture shock. I do find it sometimes quite interesting now, going back to the UK or reading the news and seeing what's going on, and just kind of thinking, what the hell? But it's interesting. So then on to schools. I got some ideas from some of my friends and colleagues, so lots of different opinions. I think there are lots of different schools and lots of different opinions, so it is important, as other people have said this morning, do your research and really think about what kind of school you want to work in. Some schools are profit making, some are not for profit, some are owned by big kind of corporate brands, and some are not. So this can really change kind of the culture of the school. So it's kind of important. It's been interesting. I've been teaching internationally, as I said, for quite a long time. So I'm kind of used to how international schools run. And it's interesting. We've had quite a few new staff this year who've come directly from the UK. And so their experiences are very different. They kind of find it quite shocking that teachers have to do duties and extracurricular clubs, and that they are compulsory and not paid extra for them. The fact that there's no reprographics department can be quite a shock. So although we have access to unlimited photocopying, you have to do it yourself, and that is sometimes a shock for people as well. And meetings also, some people think they're great, other people think they're not so great. So it all kind of depends on the school, obviously, that you are coming from and what you're used to, and kind of what you understand about how international schools run. It is very different because there are no kind of unions or teaching standards like there are in the UK, for example, that kind of put a limit on how many hours you work and things like that, or what duties you have to do. So it can be quite different. In terms of the students and the classes, it's really great. I think, as was also said this morning, international teaching isn't easier, it's just different. So you do have smaller class sizes, which is great because it does make marking and feedback more manageable. It makes it more easier to kind of track students, and the students are great. Behaviour is not usually a real issue. It is more kind of low-level behaviour. And I know some teachers moving directly from the UK were kind of shocked, and at the beginning were kind of like, oh, this is weird. I feel like, and they kind of planned a 35 minute lesson for an hour long, because they thought, oh, in the UK there's so much behaviour management, you don't actually get through that much. So then they kind of realised that they could actually focus on teaching and learning and really delve into some really good teaching. So it's really interesting, the kind of the differences that people find. And you do get students from all over the world, which again, as I said, can be really interesting, as they can bring in different perspectives. So another difficulty can be that people aren't used to is not having their own classroom, which can be a bit of a shock if you are used to kind of having your own base and kind of being based there all day. Depending on spacings and schools, you might have to move around a bit, and that can be quite difficult. And then just on workload, well-being, kind of staff that you have. As I said, you do get to meet and work with lots of international teachers, which is great because they have a lot of different experiences and lots of different teaching styles, so you can really learn from them. It's really interesting, and you can kind of deal with kind of common worries. Obviously, Brexit is a big issue right now, as is COVID, and people are dealing with the same kind of things, such as getting back home, visas, and things like that. As there is no Ofsted pressure, there tends to be a bit more trust and freedom to teach from kind of upper management, which is really nice. And it does enable there to be a bit more of a life-work balance. But again, that kind of depends on what you're teaching and how you're teaching. I'm teaching A-level for the first time, so obviously my life-work balance isn't great right now because I'm busy doing lots of research and things and prepping lessons and things like that. But if you kind of know what you're teaching, and it can lead to a better kind of life-work balance. CPD can be hit or miss depending again on your school. Twitter is really, really good though for CPD and keeping in contact with other people around and things like that. So absolutely you can do things. So it is really pay and benefits can really differ. I think that's the big difference in Europe compared to the kind of more international schools we've learned about this morning. Most of the schools in Europe don't offer accommodation. A lot of them don't even offer free child places. So that can be something that can be very difficult if you do have a family, and things like that can be quite difficult. But there's a lot, and I think I'm running out of time now. Brexit and visas.
Don't worry, you've still got a bit of time because the next speaker isn't here yet. So don't worry.
Okay.
Carry on.
My last big thing really that I wanted to talk about was kind of Brexit and visas, because this is something that Europe was good for, because prior to Brexit, we didn't need visas. You could just come and work here as part of being in the EU. But now, obviously, we're no longer in the EU, and so it can be quite difficult. I think countries are still trying to kind of work out what they're doing and how they're going to do it. And this is kind of the first year that people have been through it. So I was very lucky that I was here pre-Brexit. So the process wasn't as difficult for me. But I know that staff that have kind of come in this year really struggled with the process. And I think it will lead to schools recruiting a lot earlier than they used to, because schools in Europe, you can often find them recruiting in like April, May time. I think that will change and they will start recruiting earlier, because it does take a lot longer to kind of do the process. And I think there's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of visits to government offices where they may or may not speak English. It's never quite clear what exactly you need. There is still a bit of a kind of communist vibe, I guess. They still kind of you need to have 3 copies of everything. Everything's on paper, nothing's online. You have to go to one office to get one thing stamped, take it to another office, and it does seem to be a lot of kind of paper pushing, which can be quite frustrating, and it does take time. Obviously, if you're not an EU member, then you've had to deal with this for ages anyway, but it still seems like it can differ wildly. One of my American friends said her visa was processed in 4 weeks. Another one of my American friends said it took her 6 months. So it can definitely depend, I think, on which country you're applying to and what kind of things you need. And we'll kind of just see what happens with Brexit, really, and how it kind of moves forward. But that will be interesting. And that's basically it from me. So thank you for listening. I am on Twitter, so if you do want to ask me any questions, feel free.
Charlotte, that was absolutely fantastic. Well done. And thank you ever so much for taking the time out to actually talk to us about that. Another fantastic country experience, which I'm sure people can look back on and kind of gain a lot from. So thanks for coming along, and chat to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
That was Charlotte. And we've now got, hopefully, Megan. Hello, Megan. You just need to unmute yourself. I don't think I can do that. At the bottom, there should be like, yeah, no problem.
I'm with you.
Hello.
Sorry.
All right. Good morning. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Just working out how to share my screen, and then I'll be
excellent. We
ready and
have your screen. Don't worry, we have it. I'm actually going to pass. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to pass over to you. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and the country you're going to be talking about. I'm going to put your slideshow there. I don't know whether you want to try and put it full screen, but even if you don't, you can just click through the slides on the left-hand side as you go
Would
through.
that work?
It will work if you do that instead. That's fine. Are you on full screen now?
I was a minute ago, but I'm not sure.
No,
well,
no,
I'll
it's
just
okay.
work through it. Okay.
That's
Did you
fine,
see it?
but on the left, yeah, on the left, you've got your slides, so you can just literally click through those slides if you want now. It should work fine. So click on the next slide for me. Click on slide 2. We'll just test it. No?
No? Okay.
There you go. Right, there's slide 2. Yeah, I think, yeah, we've got it. We've got
it's just a bit slow. Okay,
yeah, it's just a bit slow. We're all good. We're all good. I'm going to pass over to you. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, my name is Megan, as you know now, and I am working at a British school in Brussels, in Belgium, as an English and humanities teacher. So I'm very new to the international teaching community. I just started my job here in September, but I am loving it so far and have written a blog on it, and I think that's how I've ended up here. So I wanted to talk today a bit more about my personal experience, I suppose, of teaching, as I don't feel like I'm in a place to give too much advice, as I haven't done this for as long a time as some of the previous speakers have. So I'm going to start with, hopefully this will work, with how I ended up here in Belgium. So the motivation for me to move abroad really came from the pandemic. It was something I'd wanted to do for a while anyway, and I just thought, I was sat in my one-bed basement flat in Kent, in Maidstone, and I just thought, this is a bit bleak in a lockdown, and I just wanted somewhere to live, somewhere where I could go outside for my daily walk, even if it was in lockdown, and be excited to be there and be excited to live in that area and kind of proud of where I lived. So that was what caused me to start looking at international jobs. I'd looked previously in my RQT year, but I just was unsuccessful. I got down to an interview process for a Nord Anglia school and went through the big hotel in London process, meeting the head and things like that. And I actually had a really lovely time, and it made me want to work abroad. But this interview for this school that I'm at now was a lot more informal and relaxed, actually. So I just had a chat. An email came through that the head of the school would like to have a chat with me about a potential job going there, and so I said, yeah, I'd love to have a chat. That's absolutely fine. Went for a chat and ended up with a job in Belgium, and I hadn't even notified my current school I was interviewing because I didn't realize. So something I've learned already is that the interview process is very different on a school by school basis, and that's something to be mindful of, that it might be a really formal London hotel experience, it might be an informal chat with someone, and you end up with a job that you didn't know you'd sort of applied for. So after the interview, I got the job in March last year, and I knew I would be moving in August later that year. So I started straight away selling all of my belongings. I'm in a very sort of lucky situation in that it's just me and I was renting. So it was very easy to sort of say, hand in the notice, let my landlady know that I was leaving, and I sold literally everything I owned. Excuse me. I packed one suitcase to move. And so another piece of advice I would give is that when you're moving somewhere, find a flat that comes with everything ready for you. So when I moved here, I had a flat that I'd viewed on a video call, but all of the bills are included in the rent. And when I arrived, I had all of the crockery, everything was ready. They'd bought me a new duvet, new pillows, and they'd even done a little food shop for me when I moved in. So I literally moved in ready to live here. It felt like home straight away. And I think that really helped with the transition. So that's something to bear in mind. Just try and get all your bills included, so you come into a place that's got TV and you can use the internet straight away. It just takes a lot of the stress off the process. I know that Charlotte's just talked about this, but the visa process itself was quite complicated. I had to go to London for a medical check before I could move here. I had to go to the visa office, which I wasn't expecting to do. I was hoping to have my Irish passport in time, but unfortunately I had to go through the visa process. So just be mindful as well that it's not too stressful. It's quite straightforward, but it's a pain to have to go to London a lot because there's only specific doctors you can go to, there's only specific places you can go to, and they tend to be London, and it's also quite expensive upfront. So my school did pay back what I put into that when I got here, but the upfront cost is quite steep. So just put some money aside if you're looking to move for that as well. When I got to Belgium as well, the process was quite complicated, and it was in a different language. So it was in French and Dutch, Flemish, sorry, which was even more complicated. So I arrived, and you have to register at your commune where you live. You have to have the police come and check that you do live where you say you do. And again, it's another bit of an expensive process. I don't think that would be the same for someone that works at a slightly larger school. I think it's a small school that I work at, and I think that's probably why there wasn't the support there for that process. But larger schools tend to have someone there that does that for you. Okay, so pros and cons of living in Belgium. I did have this nicely animated, but it doesn't matter. I'll just talk about it all. So the work-life balance is so much better than it was for me in the UK. It is. I find I'm able to go out on work nights, which I never did before. There's a great social life that comes with working in an international school. So there's always someone that wants to go and do something. And you can always, there's always something on as well, which is the city life, isn't it? I spend most of my weekends going on day trips to to cities around Belgium. I am hoping to go to Amsterdam in half term. So there are other countries in the mix as well. But that's definitely made easier by the fact that you get more PPA time, which is my next point. I'm able to get so much more work done during the school day because I have minimum 1 PPA a day. I think I've only got 1 day where I have none. So it's made it much easier to get what I need to get done and then have my own time. I haven't taken my laptop home with me for the last 2 weeks, which has been fantastic. And it just really... it helps you enjoy your job more because you're better rested. You've got more going on outside of school. And I've learned this year that it's really important to have a life beyond school. I think I was very much, my job was my life when I was in the UK. And I think that was probably not the healthiest way to live your life. So now I've kind of got the balance right, and I feel much, much happier as a result of that. The salary, which has been mentioned a lot as well today, is better. It's not the best I've seen here at all, but I think that something to consider when you move as well is what's the taxation like. I know in Dubai, for example, I've just listened to that it's not taxed to a salary, but here in Belgium it very, very much is quite highly taxed. So just bear in mind what your take-home income will be. But there are other benefits, which I've got at the bottom there, which I'll talk about in a second, that kind of make up for the fact that you're losing quite a big chunk of income to tax. Behaviour issues, again, it's been brought up before, so I'm not going to go on about that for too long, but they are minimal. You don't have to deal with that. I teach for a full hour, 6 times a day, and I actually get through the content that I want to get through. And the children are delightful, and it's such a pleasure. And I really have started to enjoy teaching again, which I think you can lose the love of it when it becomes quite tiring, having to do behaviour management all of the time. The city itself is wonderful. There's always something on. I've made such fantastic friends since moving here. It's been the best decision I've ever made. I am the happiest I've ever been, and the city is lovely. I feel very safe here. I live in a nice area, I think. As far as I know, I live in a nice area. There's public transport, which is fantastic. And it feels almost like a small village, the international teaching community, because you all end up living very close to each other. And so it's walkable to visit friends and go to their houses as well. Other perks. We have something called an Eden Red card. So you get given something like €150 a month to spend on your grocery shopping. You can also use it on Uber Eats and in restaurants as well. So that really helps cut your costs. We get eco vouchers. You can spend those on the Eurostar. You can spend them on a bike, anything that's helping the environment as well. And we're on a 14-month salary structure. It's something like that. So every December, I think, and July, you get paid double your salary for that month. So for me, that's meant that I have a lot more disposable income every month because I don't have to save anymore. I'm not as conscious of saving as I was in the UK, and I'm not stressed about it. So I know that my double salary will go to that, and I'm able to do more enjoyable things. Like I'm going interrailing this summer by myself, just going around Europe, and I will spend my eco vouchers on my train tickets, and then I'll use my saved saved up extra salary for the accommodation costs. Something else to consider, which one of my friends has just brought up to me literally seconds before this talk, is the pension. So here there's an agreement between Belgium and the UK, so whatever I put into my pension here, I'll still get. But there are other countries that that's not the case for, so it's worth checking before you move to make sure that you don't lose out on your hard-earned money and your pension contributions. Okay, cons. I'm just going to quickly go through these because I feel like I'm talking for a long time. Extracurricular, this has literally come up in the last talk as well. There's a lot of expectation that you're going to be available to go on full-day trips, on overnight trips, and to provide club every week for an extra hour every week. And as an English teacher, beyond sort of revision classes, it's not something I've been expected to do before. So it was new for me, and it does make your day very long. So if you're required to be in school at 8 a.m. latest, you're then working till 5 p.m. with the children. So that's not, it's not till 5 p.m. doing your marking at home or whatever. So it's been a bit different. Again, the school day is longer. It goes on till 4 p.m. There's 6 periods in it. So it feels, it was hard to adjust to at first. There's different expectations. So whilst behaviour is much easier, there's a lot of the admin stuff that perhaps is more difficult to deal with here. So report writing, again, something I've not been familiar with before. I come from schools that have just done double parents' evenings or have sent home just grades and then like an effort grade as well. So actually writing lengthy reports has been quite a shock to the system. And I teach a lot of students as a subject teacher. And so the process takes a while. Parents' evenings are longer as well, and they're quite intense, but I do feel really supported by the parents. When I first moved, I worried, being in the private system for the first time, that there would be more pressure from parents, but they are incredibly supportive and on the whole really positive about their child's progress and things like that. So being away from home, again, in Belgium, doesn't really feel like it's a point worthy of mentioning. I'm 2 hours on the train away from my family. I've had so many visitors already since I've been here. Both my parents have made it out here. My brother's come to visit. I've got friends coming in Easter. Everyone finds it very easy. You just hop on the Eurostar and you're here. You're straight into the city centre, and I can get home very easily as well. I've been home for Christmas and I'm going home for Easter as well. So it's very easy to get back. I don't find myself missing home. It's very familiar. Being here, it's not a culture shock at all. It's a very international city, Brussels, which is part of its charm, really. Teaching beyond specialism, I teach English and humanities. I am not a geography or history specialist. I have struggled with that. I think, again, that's probably more a small school con than it is an international teaching one. So if anyone is a geography or history specialist and would like to give me some support or advice, I'm always open to that. Please do let me know. It's just me in my department for English and humanities as well. It's a struggle for quality assurance in terms of, am I still teaching to the standard that I was when I was in a large department? Who's keeping who can I go to ask for advice on the structuring of curriculum, things like that. So I have lent quite heavily on things like the Twitter community whilst I've been in this role, and I found it so helpful. And events like this are fantastic, and this sort of community have been really helpful for when you find yourself on your own in the international community. There's always someone there that's willing to help you and give you advice and work with you. And there's always someone in the same situation as well, because there's a lot of schools that are moving. So my school is a prep school at the moment. We have year 7 and year 8, but we're moving to secondary. So it's going to be that sort of transitional period. And then hopefully when we get larger, we will have more specialists coming in. The students are different. I think that's a point that's come up a couple of times as well. They are, I have, for example, a class of 6 in one year group, and they've been together for years, and they're just very different in terms of the type of people that you might be used to in a UK school. So a lot of my popular culture references, for example, will go like completely unnoticed. They just won't get them. They don't know who I'm referring to. And so there's a different way of forging relationships and connections. So rather than needing to know about what's the latest sort of TikTok trend, you don't need, because none of them have social media. So again, might be the small school they're sort of very sheltered, but also worth thinking that of different ways to connect with your students as well. So that's something that's been a bit of a shock to me as well. But I'm adapting to that. Different policies. Have to stress that this is probably a primary versus secondary thing, and I'm not used to the primary environment, but there is a lot of sort of more pressure on marking. They expect every piece of work to be marked. Every book should be up to date every week. There are checks on those. My planning is checked every week, which as a department of one is quite interesting. So there's a lot of other stresses.
Megan, we're struggling. Megan, we're struggling with your Wi-Fi a little bit. We're struggling with your Wi-Fi. It's just started to cut out a little bit there at the end. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Just try and do that last bit because we missed that last tiny bit at the end.
Oh, I was just saying that you have to do a lot of marking, but I think that might be a more primary policy than a international one. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that my?
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot, Megan. Cheers. Thank you. That was brilliant. Right, that's Belgium. Right, we're now moving on again to our next country. Hello, Becky.
Hi.
You all right?
Yeah, good,
I'm actually going to let you introduce yourself and your country rather than me do it for you. Have you got any slides you're sharing today? Or are you going to talk?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, do you want to share your screen now and we'll get that set up before I kind of hand over to you?
Okay. Just let me know if you can see.
Yeah, you just need to go. Yeah, I mean, you don't. Oh,
Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect. If you can just, there might be a little icon there that says hide on it. If you can click, if you click hide up, there we go. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to hand over to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So my name's Becky. I'm originally from Manchester in the UK, and I teach secondary English language and literature and a bit of theory of knowledge. So I had 4 years in the UK, and then myself and my partner, who's now my wife, decided to move to Vietnam, to Ho Chi Minh City, also known as Saigon. And we've been spending 7 months in Rome in Italy. So after 3 years, we moved to Rome in Italy. So I'm part of a teaching couple and part of the LGBT community, which also kind of impacted our decisions and our experiences. And I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So I'm going to talk about Vietnam and Italy. I'll mainly talk about Rome and Italy, but I find it helpful to kind of use Vietnam as a comparison for the different areas. I'll talk about daily life, the teaching, some of the challenges as well. So in Vietnam, we lived in a apartment high-rise. We were on the 25th floor, had this beautiful view of the river, very new apartment, kind of IKEA furniture. And then we moved into a villa, both had a shared pool. And now we're living in a one-bedroom about 15 minutes away from the Colosseum in Rome. And so those kind of that's a huge kind of comparative difference there in what affects our daily life and kind of what you can afford. And I'll talk a bit about packages later. In terms of what it's like to live in Italy, I know many people have been on holiday to Italy and will know kind of what it's like to walk around Rome. Living in Europe can be very different to those kind of holiday experiences. So kind of the conveniences like transportation is pretty easy. Public transport is great compared to like Vietnam, where public transport is not something you use. You have your own motorbike and you get taxis. Here, taxis are extremely expensive, but the metro system is really, really good. The food is, so in Vietnam, I never kind of thought before we moved to Vietnam that I would be having like beef noodle soup for breakfast. That was one of the biggest kind of changes. And I think anyone who's looking at moving abroad, just to make sure that you are just being really open-minded, all those habits and things that you think you'll never change, you absolutely will. In Rome, I will now have a cappuccino and a pastry every morning for breakfast. So just kind of those differences. The food, obviously, in Italy is incredible. It can be quite expensive, but it is amazing. but kind of the diversity within Rome, the diversity, having different kind of foods from different cuisines only recently has been more popular. Italian food is the majority, and it can be a little bit difficult sometimes to find different food. You can find it, you just have to work hard, and you get to know by kind of after you've lived here for a little bit longer. It's not as easy, say, like in Vietnam, when we were able to have kind of what people were saying before about Dubai and China, about how easy it is to get everything delivered. So going to Italy, obviously more like the UK, those things aren't as convenient or accessible. But when you do find them, and it's really, really good. Culturally, kind of same as other people's experiences in Southeast Asia of having kind of that different outlook on life that kind of goes through and filters through to your everyday. So the students, I actually had quite a diverse range of students, but Vietnamese students, kind of very ambitious, very playful, and not really what I expected before I went there. We also had a big kind of group of Korean student population as well. And the parents culturally, like they did respect teachers, but they had very high expectations of the school. And in Rome, it's the same. Like I find that the students are wonderful to teach. I have a lot of Italian students, and even if they have different passports, a lot of them have lived there for a very long time. So in Rome, people are very proud of kind of that Italian culture and heritage. They speak Italian frequently in the corridors. In Vietnam, some of our older students were always speaking English in the corridors, actually. So it was quite an interesting difference there. There is kind of, in Rome, especially, I've heard it's not quite the same in Milan, but in Italy, not as many outside of the cities, outside of the tourist areas, not as many people speak English as you would think. So it's really important to engage with learning the language. In Vietnam, that was extremely difficult. You wouldn't actually, you'd have to dedicate so much time to learning the language. And generally speaking, they would be trying to speak English or communicate in English, even if it was lower outside the city. In Italy, you are definitely looked favorably upon if you are able to even just use a little bit of the words instantly. Kind of their responses to change. We've had very kind of warm, very welcoming experiences with both in the city and outside of the city. As soon as you're willing to speak just a few words of Italian and just try. We haven't got regular lessons yet, but we will be doing soon. One of the hugest differences, and this is, when we decided to move to Vietnam, that was kind of, we didn't think about it too much. It was our first interview and we just went. And that was a huge culture shock and an extremely transformative experience. When we were deciding to go to Rome after COVID, I wanted to be closer to family. And just COVID made everything that little bit more difficult in Asia with the borders. Whereas with Italy, there was a little bit more freedom, and we knew we would be able to get home if we could, and just having a different experience, really. But the environment in Rome, like lots and lots of green spaces, countryside is accessible by a train ride. I think at a point I will have to bite the bullet and drive a car on the other side of the road, but I've not done that yet. But it's quite accessible generally. Nature pollution very low in Vietnam. It is quite polluted in the city, and you do really have to plan ahead if you want to travel outside of the city, whereas not really much planning is necessary in Italy. If that's the case, the culture is very much taking it slow, kind of seeing what's going to happen that evening. Being late, it's not being late, it's just expected that a time is an estimate of when people will arrive. So we haven't really traveled out much yet. We've traveled to a couple of places within Italy itself, but it's still a little bit challenging in Europe, even with all the testing, to still do that. So we've not been out much. I feel very safe in Rome, very safe. I probably felt a little bit more safe in Vietnam. I think there's still some areas of Rome you maybe wouldn't necessarily go at night if you are female or not on your own. But I haven't had any negative experiences, and I haven't heard of many. I would say I would be more nervous about being around Manchester in the evening than I would in Rome. Found it very safe and very comfortable to walk around at night. I have a dog, and we walk around quite comfortably. In terms of the teaching, so we have gone from an IB and MYP curriculum. This is one of the biggest reasons I wanted to move abroad, was have a bit more freedom with the curriculum to be able to teach the texts. I'm an English teacher, so teach the texts that I want. Also, as part of a teaching couple, we have to always have 2 jobs available. Or if there's only one job, the country has to be one that we can move to, and our visa, our marriage would be recognised. So that does kind of add a little bit of a complication in terms of where you're looking to go. If you are not married and your partner does not teach, or there's not a job for them at that school, you have to really think about the legality of that and make sure that everything's legal and they're going to be able to stay there for longer than 3 months without having to do kind of visa runs or border runs. So that kind of drives where we go as well, like where there's those 2 jobs available for, and we're quite picky about what we want. You know, I really like teaching upper school. I like teaching year 10, 11, 12 and 13. So we look for that. And actually that's where we are right now. So we are in a American curriculum now. So we've gone from a big, quite large school, over 1,000 students if you include primary, IB and middle years program. So different to British, kind of gone, we don't really teach the British curriculum anymore, to an American system, but it still has the IBDP system in the final years. And it is only year 10, 11, 12 and 13. So there is no lower school there, which is interesting, and that's not very typical. But it is something, I think, in Europe and in Italy, there are smaller schools that have different, I think, like Megan was saying, that maybe don't have as many teachers, and then maybe you're teaching more subjects, but you do end up with those smaller classes. I have smaller classes than I did in Vietnam. In Italy, you are part of the healthcare system. Our school offers a bit of a top up to that, but this is not consistent in all the schools. So we do have friends who we actually met through Twitter in Italy already, and the different things our schools offer can vary. So this isn't about Italy so much, but is about our school. But both, you will be in the national healthcare system, and there is a small pension contribution. There are longer summer and Christmas breaks in Italy, less chance of more frequent half terms though. So just something to be aware of. Sometimes your terms can feel quite long, but you do have a much longer summer. I think ours is 10 weeks. Our school did give us visa support. With Brexit, it is a lot more difficult. And this also makes these schools in Italy a lot more competitive. Italy is a highly desirable country to go to. And as a result of that, they have a lot of applications. So anything that really makes your application stand out, look a little bit different. Many of the schools do ask for 2 years. Well, the IB schools, non-British schools, will ask for 2 years teaching internationally first, somewhere else. So the school did support us with the visa process and made it as smooth as possible, but there is a lot of things you need to do. And there is a 2 years tax-free possibility, but that doesn't apply to everybody. We were able to get that, being from the UK. There is kind of a lot of things involved with that, so it is something worth researching into. There is professional development opportunities in the EU, where you can network with other schools. We haven't taken those opportunities yet. Again, with COVID, it's kind of closed down borders a little bit and everything's gone virtual. So there are virtual opportunities, but those things will start to open up. And something people were talking about, clubs, trips and extras. You are expected to be fully involved in the school community, but at our school, we do receive stipends for those. And that's not consistent across all schools. It's really important to check in with the contract versus expectations, what you're required to do, what you're expected to do, and how they make that equal across teachers. So I think that's, oh yeah, so in our school in Vietnam, if a family came, they would have school places for the children. In Italy, that won't happen necessarily. They might offer school places for one child, maybe two children, and if you have more, you have to pay, and that can be quite a significant cost. The alternative would be enrolling them in the local Italian school system, which requires a level of Italian. So it's something to be aware of if you are a family, and in terms of affordability, which I will talk about next. So some of the challenges, whilst in Vietnam it was quite polluted, the weather was around 32 degrees all the time, very humid, and we had a very intense rainy season with floods like you can see in the picture. The climate in Rome year round is beautiful. Like, it can get cold over December, January, February, but it's several degrees warmer than the UK. It's sunnier considerably more. Maybe that was just because I was in Manchester where it rained all the time. You can be outdoors so much more than I felt that we could in the UK. It does get very, very hot in this summer, and air conditioning is not a given. It is not every bit where we don't have air conditioning in our one bedroom. So that's going to be quite difficult come summer, whereas in Vietnam, air conditioning was a standard. So just something to be aware of, like those shoulder seasons could be nice, but when you're in the middle of summer, it can be a little bit challenging, and winter, bills can be quite expensive. Electricity and heating in Italy is expensive. And that leads me on to talking about taxes and affordability. After those 2 years, it could go up to 40% tax, depending, and there's various little extras depending on where you're located. So if you're a family, it's something to be aware of. You really have to be careful. It is not, I would say, not necessarily more lucrative than the UK after that point. And we certainly would be saving what we saved in Vietnam. However, there is a bit more stability, like that national health care and the pension potentially, and you get better support with sick pay. Whereas in Vietnam, you didn't really get that. So it's kind of like pluses and minuses, really. Learning the language barrier actually is an issue in Italy, more than you would think. But the plus side is it's not as difficult as Vietnamese to learn. So that is definitely a possibility. Something to be aware of in relation to that. After 1 year as a resident, your UK license, if you're coming from the UK, and actually the US, I think Australia too, is void. You are not allowed to use it anymore. That means you have to take a test in Italian. And it doesn't look like post-Brexit they're going to be able to do anything about that once December comes. So after a year, you have to take a test in Italian, which is very challenging. You do have to revise for it. So something to bear in mind. You don't necessarily need a car. Myself and my wife, we live opposite our school. We have a 30-second commute. We are very lucky with that. That's not a typical. And it is quite expensive because we're in a lovely area. We don't have a commute and we don't need a car. So it's trying to figure out where you can offset those costs. I think in Italy, it maybe takes a little bit longer to find your place. They're very, very family-orientated communities. People stay in Italy for a very long time. Whereas in Vietnam, they felt like there was this constant transition. So you don't necessarily have a group of new starters with you. Myself and my wife were two of the only people who started. So then finding your place in those friendship groups and in that community can take a while, but it's worth the investment. Whereas in Vietnam, it was very quick. And as one of my friends mentioned to me last night, sometimes you end up maybe getting in with a group too quickly who you might not necessarily have got on with or associated with in the UK. It's almost like Freshers Week, that induction into a new big school where you have 30 starters. Very different to our experience in Italy. And in Vietnam, there was a very much defined expat bubble, whereas in Italy, it's not really like that. It's a bit more spread out. As I said, the expats have been here for a bit longer. Availability and cost of certain items as well. Just You would think, obviously, with the EU, and especially with, again, Brexit, it is not as easy to get a lot of the things that you could get shipped over before. So if you have a package from the UK, you have to pay extra taxes. It takes a considerable amount of time. Sometimes you have to go collect your package. So those things aren't as easy as they used to be. And some things like, I don't know, we need to make an order for our friends to bring out Yorkshire tea bags and things like that. Like, you can get them, but they're quite expensive. So medication as well, simple medication like paracetamol and ibuprofen is very expensive in Italy. Whereas obviously in England, you can just buy it for very, very cheap. So something to bear in mind. The bureaucracy is the one I've left for last. The big one. Bureaucracy in Italy is quite challenging. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of different places to go, and it's not always clear where to go. Our school's been very supportive with that, but when it comes to a doctor's appointment, they might send you somewhere else where you need several prescriptions and to make an appointment, and they might not speak English. The receptionist might not, to get a scan for something. So that can be quite challenging, but it's not, eventually it does get easier, especially if you make that effort to learn the language. So in Italy, Italy in comparison to our experience in Vietnam, I feel like Italy is ideal if you want that slower pace of life and that kind of appreciating the everyday. It has beautiful country, beautiful buildings, beautiful food, and wonderful people. It's kind of not the same intensity that Vietnam had. We were always planning where we were going to go at the weekend in terms of a different country, whether it's Thailand.
Becky, you're running out of time. You've got 1 minute.
Okay, I'm nearly done.
Okay.
I think Italy has been a bit more accessible with transport and nature. A bit of patience is required, and just being aware that the kind of affordability is it's definitely not as lucrative as Vietnam and not as lucrative as some of the other EU countries, but you definitely are rewarded by the country itself.
Becky, thanks ever so much. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. That was really, really good. Thank you very much. I learned a huge amount there myself. So thanks ever so much. And this will be available to watch back as a recording. Cheers, Becky.
Bye.
We've now got one of our sponsors, which is Brett from Pupil Progress. Brett, good afternoonish. Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah. But the international theme makes everyone confused whether it's morning or afternoon. But yeah, how you doing? You okay? You hear me all right?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Excellent. Do you want to share your screen, or are you just going to talk?
Yeah, I mean, just basically super excited. We've been with the Teachmeet Icons for like 4 years now. Crazy. Looking forward to the live event in a couple of weeks. Yeah, I'll share screen and just get cracking. I think I've got about 5 minutes.
Yeah, no props. Rich is in the backstage, so Rich is our last speaker. So everyone needs to stick around for Rich because he's going to talk about Mexico. I can see him giggling in the backstage area because I'm bigging him up. But yeah, you've all got to stick around.
I've shared screen, Tom. I don't know if someone in the back end needs to just push that
forward. It is,
forward.
mate. There it is.
Perfect.
Cheers.
I'll be super concise. Fascinating listening to these journeys about people moving abroad. I actually taught in central London. I've got a lot of friends still. Thailand, Malaysia, Dubai, Qatar. Really have an amazing time. So feel free to connect with me on Twitter, and I'll be able to connect you with those people because they've just had an amazing experience. This is actually to do with saving a bit of your time, bit of your work-life balance, and actually being able to support your teaching and learning. So I'm actually the founder of Pupil Progress. What it is a tracking and monitoring system that really just helps you do what you're trying to get your spreadsheets to do. I'll cut to the chase. We're just moving people away from ugly spreadsheets that no one really wants to learn how to use. I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to go straight to an IGCSE tracker. This is IGCSE English. Now we have tracking for every single subject area as a GCSE internationally and nationally, both UK and the IGCSE curriculums, CIE, for example. What you're seeing here is the ability to calculate the grade exactly as the exam board does, and it will actually do that against the very latest grade boundaries that have been set by us. Again, saving on your workload, you'll be able to see those grade boundaries and choose them. Science and maths teachers can even actually type in their own grade boundaries. And what you'll get is incredibly powerful information very, very quickly. How well are they performing? How many marks are they away from their minimum target grades? Again, to stress that it's taking you away from those really cumbersome spreadsheets and giving you back that time. We also are really passionate about being able to share this with students. So we've created individual reports, again, that cut into that time that you have to spend trying to create reports to take to parents' evenings, to try and actually put them, get the information across. Now, what's really nice about this at a department level, but particularly at a kind of senior management level, I do want to stress the importance of what this can do for heads of department. So if I actually go to a subject analysis, I'll be able to look at a particular subject area and how they're performing. I'm actually going to go to a better one than that. Let me go to the grade summary. So overall, the school can see exactly what's going on across the whole entire school. Everything pulls through to a central system, which allows you to see exactly how students are performing across every single subject area, which allows you to have complete visual over which departments and students you need to support in which areas. And from a subject area analysis, it allows you to actually see what's going on from a departmental level. So it's a really powerful way of you being able to see the information you need to inform teaching and learning, but without the workload. All of the subgroup breakdown, all of the information your line managers are asking you for is out now at your fingertips with very little effort. All you need to do is take yourself to pupilprogress.com. Now, if you are a English-based school watching this, we have partnered with Pixel and that partnership will allow you to get 2 subject areas at 0 cost. Okay, so it's 2 subject areas at 0 cost. You can find out all the information by clicking on the Pixel logo. And they'll bring you up with a landing page of all of that information. Now, if you are an international school and you're interested in looking at this for GCSE for a particular, I don't know, a particular subject area or group of subject areas, you can just click Get Started Now and you can actually trial it. So we've got some schools that actually use us internationally already. We've got schools in Thailand and Malaysia. We've got schools in Qatar, and we've also got a lot of schools in Dubai and a couple in Abu Dhabi too. So if you actually click on those schools, if you don't see your school name, contact us, and then you'll be able to choose your subject areas that you want to trial it for, and you get a 4-week free trial on us to be able to actually see what the software can do for you. So I'm going to keep it nice and short and punchy. If you've got any questions, please feel free to let us know. But thanks for your time today. And any questions, just let us know.
Brett, we're going to see you, aren't we, on the 26th?
100%. I booked my hotel too. I booked my hotel 2 nights. I'm coming down the Friday and the Saturday, and then I'm going to go home Sunday at some point. Yeah,
it's going to be class. So if anyone's interested in finding out more, what's the website address they need to go to?
Pupilprogress.com. That's simple. If you Google it, Pupil Progress, it comes up pretty quick. Bit of a brag on our part, but it's taken a long time to get a little bit of a good
website. I'm going to give you that.
Yeah, we're getting some notoriety, but yeah, thanks for your time today, Tom. Much appreciated.
Yeah, mate, no problem. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Nice one. Class.
Right, we've got our final speaker, Rich. Good afternoon/evening or whatever it is where you are.
Good morning. Yeah, it's good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to see you. Rich, you are also a Teachers Talk radio host, but you also work in Mexico City.
Yes, that's right.
So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your country, and you've got like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to talk about your experience. Oh, I'll get your slides going. Here you go.
Awesome,
there
fantastic.
You go. Slides are up. So I'll let you introduce yourself and your talk, and then hopefully I'll pop back in at the end.
Brilliant, thanks. And as per Teachers Talk radio tradition, Hobbs has just decided to bomb.
There you go.
The room I'm in.
We love Hobbs.
Hi everyone. So my name's Rich Wrigley, and I'm going to be talking to you about teaching and living in Latin America, particularly Mexico, but also a little bit about Brazil as well, just sort of peppered in there as well. So first, just let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I graduated with a degree in physics in the late 2000s, and I'm also something called a TCK, a third culture kid, which means I lived in as a kid in China, the States, Canada when I was a young adult, and Japan. And so third culture kid means basically that you adopt not the culture of either of your two parents, but the culture of sort of like the country that you're living in. So, you know, like I would adopt mannerisms from China, from Japan, from the States and places like that. And I really think that's what inspired me when I became a teacher to go on and teach internationally, because I had seen so many great teachers who had taught me working in, you know, really fabulous places. And that kind of inspired me to go on and teach in other places as well. After my degree, I was kind of peer pressured, I would say, into doing a PGCE. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after I graduated, and all my mates were, or about 4 or 5 of my mates who did physics with me at the same university, decided to go onto a PGCE course. So I kind of applied very last minute. Just thought, oh, you know, it'll be a year. I'll get a qualification at the end of it. I might like teaching, I might not. And luckily, it turns out that, yeah, I really love teaching. So I kind of got lucky there. I'm very privileged in that respect. I then taught in the UK for 2 years in state schools in Leicester. And I would really advise anyone who wants to teach internationally to have at least 2 years experience teaching in the UK, if you're looking to apply for British international schools, that is. And then I moved to Mexico in 2011. After that, cheers, buddy. After that, I lived in Mexico for 4 years. I met my wife here. We decided to move to Brazil. We wanted just a little bit more opportunity, a little bit more adventure and things like that. So me, my wife, and this idiot here got on a flight from Mexico City all the way to Sao Paulo in Brazil. I taught in Sao Paulo for 2 years in a British international school. Brexit happened, and I wanted to be a little bit closer to the UK without actually having to be in the UK. And we wanted a little bit more stability, so we decided to move to Germany. And I lived and worked in Cologne for 2 years. Afterwards, a former colleague of mine mentioned that there might be a teaching post or coming up back in Mexico in a different school, and it had better career progression for me. And so since 2019, I've been living and working back again in Mexico City. And so what I was going to say is, what do you need to do? Like, how do you sort of apply to become a teacher in Latin America? What kind of skills do you need? And so the first thing I would say is, a lot of, just like in Southeast Asia, in Dubai and places like that, you really need at least 2 years teaching experience in the UK to start off with. I would say that some people, like if you're a really good teacher and you're an NQT, yeah, definitely you can apply, but you will be at a disadvantage compared to more experienced teachers. But we do have, for example, newly qualified teachers or early careers teachers that maybe only have 1 year's teaching experience in the UK, teaching in our schools as well, and they're absolutely fantastic. So it's not a barrier, but I would suggest that if you do have a little bit longer experience in the UK, it will make your life a lot easier. To apply for all of my positions, I applied on the TES website. There are some external companies that will allow you to, there are some like external recruitment companies, but to be honest, I've never used them. I would say that just applying through the TES, having a very strong CV, and uploading a very decent cover letter will get you an interview quite easily as well. It really is, in Latin America, the curriculum that is most often taught in the schools that I've worked in, but also in neighboring schools and other schools that I'm aware of. The curriculum is primarily IGCSEs for Key Stage 4, which is normally administered by Cambridge International Exams, not Edexcel. And in sixth form, the most common curriculums are the International Baccalaureate, and often with that, local curricula is often taught at the same time as well. So what's really beneficial is if you don't have experience with the IGCSE program, with particularly for Cambridge International Exams, if you read up on that a little bit as well, if you go onto their website, all the syllabus is available online. Have a look and sort of familiarize yourself with, the assessment that students are going to be going through, the content as well. To be honest, IGCSEs are very, very similar to GCSEs, and so it's very straightforward and easy to adapt. When I first started teaching in Mexico the first time round, I was thrown into a coordinated science class, but I was also asked to teach a GCSE maths class very last minute. And to be honest, the level and the content that I was teaching was very, very similar to the content that I was teaching back in the UK. So it isn't that much of a challenge. What I would say, though, is that you really, really read up on the international baccalaureates and look at basically what the process is, what content the students have to study, not just for your subject, but also for the other 5 subjects that they're expected to study as well in order to obtain the diploma as well. If you have just a little bit of knowledge of both of those things, it really, really puts you at an advantage as well. So yeah. And then my sort of last bit that I was going to put was, sorry, I've got 2 slides here. I'm trying to do 2 things at once with a cat being a doofus. I was going to talk about the good, the bad, and sort of tips for teaching in Latin America. And this is sort of my own personal experience. Your mileage may vary depending on things, but I would say the first thing in terms of teaching in Latin America, and this is my experience living and working in Mexico, but also in Brazil, but also having, traveled around Latin America a little bit as well, is the first thing I had to put on the top of my list was the people. Now that's the people you'll work with, but also the people you encounter day in and day out. I would say I'm going to big up Mexico a little bit, but Mexican people are probably the friendliest people and the most welcoming people that I have ever met. And they're the most forgiving people as well. They want to learn about you. They want to, learn about like where you're from, and they'll really sort of like take you into your heart. They'll, there's a big culture of family here and of people doing a lot of things together. There's actually a very big communal aspect of life, and that actually stems from pre-Hispanic times, when there was a very sort of communal society and people would do everything together. And that's kind of just filtered in through life. So it's not uncommon to meet someone and then get invited to to a party or something like that, especially pre-COVID, and then be expected to like meet that person's family, extended family and everything like that, even if it's just like going out for meeting someone like a quick mate or something like that. The next thing I would say as well is, in the 3 schools that I've worked in Latin America, the work-life balance is very, very good. It's a lot different compared to the work-life balance in the UK in particular. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to leave teaching in the UK, was the work-life balance, and why. And so, yeah, at sometimes here, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy the whole time. There are times where things can be very, very busy, particularly this time of year when we're having a lot of coursework coming in and things like that. But it is definitely a lot more manageable. To give you an idea of the context, my school hours are, I'm expected to be in school from 7:15 in the morning. I'm very privileged as well that I only live a 5-minute walk away from my I only live a 5-minute walk away from my school. That is not the case for a lot of people, especially living in big cities. I know there's some people that will commute an hour in but I'm very privileged in that respect. But the school day will finish at 2:55 and teachers can leave at 3:15. So, and that is the normal. The expectation that you would stay much longer past that, there is none. There is no expectation in that regards. Maybe for me as a head of faculty, if I was interviewing someone, or if I had to do some faculty work or something along those lines, I would stay a little bit longer, but that's my choice. And I'm genuinely saying no one is putting the pressure on me, or there's that sort of sort of subtle expectation that you stay past those hours. So the work-life balance is very manageable, and it means that also you can dedicate your time to actually planning lessons and delivering good lessons and things like that. On top of that as well, the quality of life and the cost of living are both very, very good. The quality of life overall is really, really good, but also the cost of living is incredibly cheap. I heard some speakers earlier saying that that like, for example, utilities and things like that in Europe and places like that are quite high. Here, utilities are very, very cheap. I think my last electricity bill was £10 or something like that. And my last water bill for the quarter was £5 or something along those lines as well. So it's very, very cheap. Shopping and groceries and all of those kind of things are also very cheap as well. But sometimes every now and then, particularly imports can be quite expensive. And Mexico City, or Mexico in general, because we're so close to the United States, our cost of living can also be very, very closely linked to the exchange rate between the Mexican peso and the US dollar. Right now, it's not brilliant, which means that even though I'm earning in pesos and I have a very good quality of living here, if I went to the United States, I would find that things would be a lot more expensive than I would be used to right now. So that's something that's really important to bear in mind. You can live very, very comfortably here, but if you're looking to send money back to the UK or wherever you're from, or you're looking to go back to the UK every summer to see family and things like that, that can become a little bit expensive. But on top of that, though, there is a great opportunity to travel into other parts of Latin America as well, and also the United States and Canada and things like that. Travel is not as cheap as getting on a Ryanair flight from London to Milan or somewhere like that. You can't get like £10 flights or anything like that. But flying in between Latin America is really, really cheap. And also traveling within Mexico is very, very cheap as well. Internal flights or things like getting on coaches and things like that is very, very easy and safe and very cheap to travel as well. In terms of teaching as well, in all of my schools that I've taught in internationally, but particularly I would say the schools in Mexico and Latin America, you're given a lot of trust and personal freedom. Yes, obviously there is accountability, and yes, we need to make sure we're doing everything properly and things like that. It's not a free for all, but senior management and your middle leaders and things like that will really give you a lot of professional freedom to teach the way that you think is best, to teach the curriculum in the way that you think is best as well. And that's one of the biggest perks for me, and that's one of the biggest perks that makes me want to keep teaching in Latin America as well. Let me just get rid of Hobbs because he's being a doofus, as per Teachers Talk Radio tradition. Sorry, folks. Out you go. Sorry about that. This is where I was also teaching online. So basically you got an experience of my online lessons just there. Basically Hobbs would try and announce himself and cause chaos, and then all of the students would want to see Hobbs. So he's just gotten used to coming in and out. Apologies for that. The other things I would say is, in terms of, you're given a lot of professional freedom. The international packages for Latin America are actually quite good. They're a lot better than mainland Europe. You're helped out with visas and the visa application process. If you have a spouse, it depends on the school, but sometimes they will help your non-teaching spouse get a visa. Sometimes that might be just a visa to live and reside in the country, which means you're not entitled to work. But sometimes it can also be a working visa. That is something that you would need to speak to the school about directly. You're given flights, return flights. Normally it's every 2 years to the UK, depending on how long you've worked at the school. So for example, at the school I'm currently working at, I'm given a return flight every 2 years. And then after my second year, I'm entitled to a return flight to the UK every year, essentially. Now, last year, I didn't take my return flight because of COVID. And so the school gave me the equivalent money for that flight after tax as well. So there's an option as well. There's a lot of options like that as well. So I would say, yeah, expect return flights and things like that. You sometimes are giving a shipping allowance. Sometimes you're just told to get extra or excess baggage to come over. And that's not the school being cheap. It's normally customs being a bit dodgy. So, for example, when I first moved to Mexico City, I asked, is there a shipping budget or something along those lines? I have some things I'd like to bring over. And my head teacher said, honestly, if you ship them, they'll get held up in customs for a year and you might not see them again. So it's better just to bring it as extra baggage and take it over as excess baggage. And the school will reimburse you for that. And that's what I've done pretty much every time I've moved from either to Brazil or from Germany to Mexico. I've paid for excess baggage and just put it, and the school has reimbursed me up to a point as well. In terms of the international package as well, sometimes it's very standard to either be given a allowance for accommodation, or more commonly, the school will actually find you accommodation. Find you accommodation in that respect as well. So on top of your salary, it's like teaching maybe in Southeast Asia or in Dubai or places like that. On top of your salary, you also get accommodation included as well in the package, and you essentially don't have to pay rent. I basically just have to pay utility bills for my apartment and the cost of a parking space, basically. In terms of the accommodation you're given, it's really, really nice. It depends on where you want to live. I live a little bit outside of the center of Mexico City, where it's a little bit cheaper and nearer the school, which means I'm able to get a regular teacher's salary or regular sort of teacher contract. I'm able to get a 3-bedroom apartment with really nice big living room, really nice sort of like ensuite bathroom in the main bedroom, and a really nice kitchen, all furnished and provided by the school, which is fantastic. If I was living maybe in a more sort of trendy area closer to the center of town, the stipend or the allowance that I was given may not either cover something that large, so I might have to get somewhere a little smaller, or what's common as well, particularly for new teachers, is they might be given the option to sort of buddy up with either a new member of staff or something like that, and you would share accommodation with another member of staff as well in somewhere a little larger. A lot of younger teachers in their mid-20s would prefer to do that. I'm married, so obviously I said I don't want to do that, and my human resources team here, or our human resources team here, said, sure, no problem. This is what we can offer you, basically. So you don't the option is there, but you're never sort of forced into it, if that makes sense. When I first moved to Mexico, I took that option in my different school, and it was absolutely fantastic. I lived with 2 other teachers in a really nice big house, and it worked really, really well. And finally, honestly, the best thing about teaching in Latin America are the students. The students here have a spark about them, is the best way I can describe it. They really, really want to do well. They really, really want to please you. It's kind of a weird sort of pride thing they have. They really, really want to do well. They really want to know a lot about you as well. And that's something that, and not in a malicious way, maybe, but in an actual genuinely trying to find out more about you, wanting to learn a lot more about you. And they can get really, or they want to try and get very, very close to you. And that's something that a lot of British teachers teaching here for the first time find very, very difficult to start off with, is to try and keep those boundaries and explain to the students, no, we need to have those kind of professional boundaries and things. But yeah, hands down, the students are the best the best thing about teaching in Latin America. I won't say their behavior is perfect all of the time. They can be a little bit unmotivated at times, and they can be a little bit chatty and things like that every now and then. And that also stems from a cultural thing, particularly like the chatting thing and talking over each other is something that comes up a lot. But they are also incredibly bright, incredibly hardworking, and they're absolutely fantastic. So I would say that the behavior management and things like that is way better, or way easier than teaching in the UK, which is an absolute plus, obviously, because it means you can just get down to the teaching and have a good time teaching. But if you have taught previously in places like Southeast Asia, in the Middle East and things like that, you might have a bit of a shock at how our students behave. They can be a little bit more livelier. for want of a better word. Yeah. And so those are like all of the good things. The bad things is I could sum it up by one quote I read about teaching or living in Brazil, and that's Brazil is not for beginners. And I think that applies to all of Latin America. I would say Latin America is not for beginners. The school will help you out for sure to a point, but it can be really frustrating at times. Just the day-to-day life in Latin America. There's a lot of bureaucracy. There is a bit of corruption every now and then as well. And it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're used to organize everything 100% organized and efficient all the time. So you have to have a really good sense of humor about things. You have to be very flexible a lot of the time, and you have to kind of just sort of roll with the punches every now and then as well. And you have to realize a lot of the time as well, where teachers struggle is that teachers come in and think we should do it this way because it's more efficient, more organized, boom, 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 boom. And that can kind of turn people off a little bit and stuff. So you have to kind of come in with a more, I don't want to say laid back, but a more flexible, relaxed approach to things sometimes. And when things don't go your way, sometimes it can be, you've got to just sort of almost laugh it off. A good sense of humor here is really, really important. I don't want to terrify anyone or anything like that, but yeah, sometimes it can be a little frustrating at times. But yeah. And so my tips to enjoy teaching and working in Latin America is to integrate. Like some other speakers have said, like for example, in Europe, you don't really have a bubble of teachers, or you might not be a new, like it might just be one or two people starting straight away. In here, it's similar to maybe Asia and places like that, where we do have a lot of teachers starting, every year, every 2 years or something like that. I think this year we had about 10 new teachers in a relatively large school. And that does mean that it's really good when you first get here, because you do have like a group of people, like almost like a support network to start off with. But it can become a bit of a bubble. And so what I would suggest is, as soon as you feel comfortable, get out of that bubble. And that's what I did. I would, when I first arrived here, like I was worried I was in just sort of like a bubble of like my roommates or my flatmates, my, like my colleagues, and just seeing them the whole time and no one else, and not actually meeting any Mexicans. So I started going to like football matches. I started playing football here. I started playing softball and baseball here. And I would just sort of find activities and go and do them and just meet people basically. And getting out of that bubble is super important. And the other thing I would say as well, the biggest tip is in all of Latin America, you pretty much need to learn Spanish, I would say, except for Brazil, obviously, because you need to learn Portuguese there. So if you can make an effort in learning Spanish and Portuguese, that is really, really fantastic. And people here are so forgiving. They will really, really encourage you to like learn Spanish and things like that. And they'll try and teach you everything as well. People aren't offended if you mangle a pronunciation or anything like that. They really, really respect that you're making an effort and that you're trying to learn their language. And that goes a incredibly long way. And that's it for me, I think.
Rich, absolutely fantastic, mate. Thank you ever so much.
No worries.
Really, really good presentation. I learned a huge amount from that. So
awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, mate. Cheers. That's it, folks. That is it. Like, that is a huge range of presentations today that we've heard about so many different countries. Thanks everyone who's joined live. I know a lot of people have been dipping in and out of this live, so thank you very much to those people, and also to everybody watching back on the recording. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I've got a huge amount out of it. All the different countries that people have taught in, all their different experiences. We'll be back again for another Teachmeet International Icons. Do follow us on Twitter at TMIntIcons, and I know we'll have more events like this coming up on the horizon this year. Dan is the coordinator, absolutely fantastic, Dan Rosen. He will be coordinating the next event, so stay tuned for more. And also, if you want to access the recording to this, it will be available at teachmeeticons.com probably this evening, or certainly this weekend anyway, for free. So if you have people who are your colleagues or people who you think may be interested in teaching internationally, then do pass on the link, which I will post out to everybody anyway on Twitter through the TM Icons account later on. Thanks also to Steph, who's been watching in the background and just keeping an eye on me, really. So thank you for that. And thank you so much to all our speakers as well. Cheers, everyone.